Welcome to r/entitled people, where a wild Karen demands that OP pays for the wedding, so he goes absolutely nuclear. My insane mother-in-law demanded I pay for her daughter's entire wedding. I called the cops on her instead. I'm a 31-year-old guy working in finance tech, and I've been pretty fortunate with my career. I live a comfortable life, but I've worked hard to get to where I am. My wife is a stay-at-home mom to our 2-year-old, and there's no need for her to work. We're very comfortable. My wife's family, though, has always been a bit much, especially her mother and her younger sister. My wife is wonderful. She's kind and patient, but those traits often make her a target for people who want to take advantage of her. Her sister is getting married soon, and for the last few months, they've been acting like my bank account is some kind of community resource that they're entitled to raid whenever they want. It started out as little jokes during family dinners. They'd make these comments about how the wedding would be so much nicer if I chipped in for the premium catering or the high-end venue. I just laughed it off and I kept eating my dinner. I thought it was just them being tacky, and I didn't want to cause a scene in front of my wife, so I just let it slide. It didn't stay funny for long, though. My sister-in-law started getting really entitled. She'd corner me at family barbecues or send me links to insanely expensive decor, asking me what I thought about the price tag, as if I were the one writing the check. She'd eventually stopped pretending to be subtle and told my wife that she was counting on us to pay for the bulk of the wedding expenses. She genuinely figured that the cost was nothing to me and that it would be rude for me not to step up. It became this daily thing where they'd pressure us, telling my wife that we were being selfish and that we had a responsibility to fund her dream day. It was like living with a couple of debt collectors who never took no for an answer. The absolute worst part was when she told my wife that if we didn't cover at least half of the total costs, she was going to uninvite us. My wife is a sweetheart, but this was really starting to weigh on her. She'd come home from talking to them and just sit on the couch for hours, looking completely drained and defeated. The breaking point happened a couple of nights ago. My mother-in-law called my wife around 10 at night when she was clearly hammered. I was in the other room, but I could hear this screaming through the phone. She went on this long, rambling rant about how my wife is stuck up and thinks she's better than everyone else just because she married a rich boy. She was absolutely raging, claiming that I secretly hate her entire family, and that's the only reason I won't hand over the cash for the wedding. She shouted that my wife is dead to the family and that we shouldn't bother showing up to anything ever again. She sounded like she was completely out of her mind. My wife just sat there as the phone was held away from her ear, tears streaming down her face, until her mom finally hung up. It really shook her up. She spent the rest of the night crying, and that was the moment I realized I was done playing nice. I've spent enough time trying to appease people who only care what I can provide for them. I know there's no point in trying to reason with these people because they live in a completely different reality. I decided I was going to handle this properly, and I was going to make sure that they knew their behavior had consequences. There's something about my sister-in-law that I haven't shared yet, and it's a massive part of why this whole situation was about to blow up in her face. Everyone thinks that she's this struggling bride who needs my money, but the reality is she actually makes decent money herself. She's the one who pays for most of my mother-in-law's living expenses, which is probably why the old lady is so obsessed with keeping her happy. My sister-in-law considers herself a makeup expert and a legit entrepreneur. To be fair, she does know a ton about makeup products and trends, but she uses that knowledge to run a pretty nasty scam. She manages this massive Facebook page that offers high-end makeup products at these huge discounts that look way too good to be true. She gets a high volume of orders every single day, and then she just hands them off to this fulfillment company she found that sources counterfeit items directly from factories in China. She's been selling fake makeup to hundreds of people for years, and she isn't even trying to hide it from those of us who know. She actually brags about it constantly at family get-togethers. She loves to laugh about how stupid people are and how they'll buy anything as long as it has the right logo slapped on the front. She tells us they'll never even know it isn't the real thing. It honestly makes my skin crawl. Whenever I've tried to confront her about it, asking if she's really okay with scamming people by selling them potentially dangerous fake products, she just brushes me off. She justifies her actions by saying that most of her customers can't afford the real luxury items, So she's doing them a favor by helping them experience the feeling of owning it without the high price tag. I asked her once if she thought her customers would still be happy if they knew the items were cheap knockoffs that weren't tested for safety, and she just rolled her eyes at me. She told me I don't understand how the real world works because I'm rich, so my opinion is completely irrelevant. She thinks she's untouchable because she's been getting away with it for so long, and because her little operation has been funding her mom's lifestyle. She has absolutely no idea that I've been keeping tabs on her for a long time. I never wanted to be the guy who caused drama, but when she started trying to reach into my pockets and hurt my wife, she crossed the line. She thinks she's a genius for scamming people, but she has no clue that she's been leaving a digital paper trail a mile wide. And look, if you go to a flea market or a garage sale and pick up a knockoff bag or some fake lipstick for a few bucks, I don't have any problem with that. Everyone knows what they're getting into in those situations, and you're paying a fair price for a cheap imitation. If she were setting up a booth at a local market and being honest about what she was selling, I wouldn't care at all. But that isn't what she's doing. She's actively advertising these items online as if they're the authentic high-end products, tricking unsuspecting customers into paying premium prices for cheap, potentially dangerous garbage. She's lying to them, taking their money under false pretenses and laughing about it behind their backs. She even brags about knowing the exact age ranges, geographical locations, usually poorer cities, and device types and cell phone carriers, low-end cell phones and cricket plans that she targets to run her ads where she finds what she calls the easiest suckers. I spent the next few days meticulously organizing every piece of evidence that I had against my sister-in-law. I made sure to do all of this while I was at the office, away from my home. I didn't want my wife getting wrapped up in any of this because I know she can't stand drama, and I didn't want her to feel guilty about what was coming. I started by submitting a detailed report to Facebook, but I knew deep down that they probably wouldn't do much on their own. I didn't want to leave anything to chance, so I took it further and filed a report with the IPR Center, which is led by Homeland Security. To my surprise, they were incredibly interested in everything I had to offer. We spent an hour on the phone, and they walked me through how to provide as much specific information as possible. After that, I filed a formal complaint with the FTC Consumer Report to make sure there was a federal record of her scam. Finally, I called the local police, and I filed a report there too. They took down the information, though they didn't seem nearly as invested as the folks at the IPR Center were. Once I had all of those reference numbers in hand, I went back to Facebook and submitted a final, thorough report that linked to every single official investigation that I'd triggered. Exactly 2 days later, my wife's phone started ringing while we were sitting on the couch. It was my sister-in-law, and she was absolutely bawling. She was frantic, saying that Facebook had nuked her entire page, and she had no idea what to do or how to recover her business. She was actually asking my wife if I could help her fix it since I work in tech. I didn't even hesitate. I told her absolutely not, and that I wanted no part of her mess. She tried to push back, but I took the phone and just hung up. Not long after, there was a knock on our front door. My mother-in-law was standing on the porch. She wasn't acting smug or entitled this time. She looked genuinely terrified, and she was even quietly crying. She started rambling about how my sister-in-law's entire income stream was gone for the moment, and they didn't know what they were going to do to pay their bills. I looked at her, kept my voice completely calm, and asked her, "Didn't you tell my wife she was dead to your family?" She just froze. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me with this blank look on her face. Then, without saying another word, she turned around and walked back to her car. I've decided that I'm never going to tell my wife the full truth about what I did. She's just too soft and timid, and I know that she'd feel horrible about the whole situation if she knew I was the one who caused it. Even now, she's actually asked me if there's anything I can try to do from my end to help her sister get her page back up. And it kills me to see her still trying to be the bigger person for people who don't deserve it. I just looked at her and told her that when people do bad things long enough, it eventually catches up to them, and that it's time for them to face the consequences of their own choices. For now, we've been keeping things at very low contact with her sister and her mom, and honestly, I hope it stays that way forever. It's been such a relief to finally have some peace in our lives, and I'm not about to let anyone ruin that again. Update. I realized that in my first post, I never even mentioned my sister-in-law's fiancé. That's probably because we barely knew anything about the guy, and none of us had actually met him. They're long distance since we all live in Florida and he's based in California. My sister-in-law has gone out to visit him a few times, but he's never once made the trip down here. The excuse was always that he was just too busy with his work to travel. My sister-in-law had told us that he worked in online marketing too, so I'd always just assumed that this guy was some kind of bottom-feeder scammer just like her. It turns out he was way more than that. From what my wife has heard, he was actually the main guy running the entire operation. My sister-in-law was just one of his associates, and he had a whole team of different women running these types of pages across various social media platforms. The investigation I triggered ended up leading the authorities directly to him, and he's currently in custody. Needless to say, the wedding is off. My sister-in-law managed to talk to him a few times while everything was falling apart, and he was absolutely furious with her. Through the course of the investigation, he found out that she had been bragging about their illegal operations to all sorts of people, and she was the reason he's in custody now. She actually had the nerve to ask him if there were any other parts of the business that she could take over while he was locked up, and he apparently threatened her, telling her that she'd pay for this and to never contact him again. Apparently, he's also involved with the triads. He is Asian American, so maybe it's true. Or maybe he just says it thinking he sounds cool. We'll see what happens. That was the last that she heard from him. I really wonder if this guy was ever serious about marrying her at all, or if that was just some sort of lie that he fed his coworkers to keep them loyal. Either way, the whole house of cards has finally collapsed. Sister-in-law is not in custody, and I don't know if she'll be punished at all. But seeing her business crumble like this has been much better to me than her simply going to jail. Update. The silence for my wife's family has been the best gift we could have asked for. After the fiancé got locked up, the legal spotlight eventually turned toward the other associates, and my sister-in-law definitely hasn't been exempt from that. She's been dealing with a massive headache of federal investigations poking around her finances and her records, and from what I hear through the grapevine, she's lost just about everything she had saved up. The irony is that now she's struggling to make rent, and my mother-in-law is stuck in a house with no one to pay the bills. They've both tried to reach out to my wife a few more times with these pathetic, guilt-tripping messages, but we've kept them completely blocked. My wife has had a really tough time processing all of this. It was a lot for her to wrap her head around the fact that her own family was involved in an actual criminal scam. She had no idea how serious this was before it exploded, and she had believed that what her sister was doing was completely fine. She's still hurt and pretty shaken up, but she's starting to see things for what they really are. She doesn't have a clue that I'm the one who tipped off the IPR center, and I'm going to keep it that way. She just thinks that the feds finally caught up to a corrupt business, which is technically true, and she's just glad the toxicity is gone from our lives. We fully embrace the no-contact life, and for the first time since we got married, we don't have to worry about who's going to call us with some ridiculous demand or some drunken outburst. Update. It's been a while, but I have to share this because the level of delusion I'm witnessing is actually incredible. My sister-in-law is still at it, using her personal Facebook account to try and offload the last of her inventory. It's mind-boggling because she has absolutely no way to get new stock now, and she's still pulling this stunt despite the federal investigation hanging over her head. I was talking to two of my workmates who actually used to work in cyber investigations, and they had a good laugh when I told them about it. They explained that the feds have almost certainly already tapped into her accounts. Once they serve those warrants to Facebook, Google, or any other site, the companies hand over everything immediately, from login data and IP addresses to the full message history, including every single message she thought she deleted. They also have the full records of that old page she thinks is gone for good. My coworkers told me she's just digging her own grave deeper every time she hits post. The hilarious part is that she's still posting those super corny, inspirational quotes on her timeline constantly. You know the ones. She keeps putting up things like, "Our biggest challenges are what builds us the most character," or "Never surrender, no matter how hard they try to keep you down." I just sit there and think, gee, maybe she'll finally surrender once they do a raid on her house, just like they did her fiancé. She even posted this truly ridiculous one recently, saying, "If you want something, fight for it." I just looked at the screen and shook my head. Lady, you're a scammer. The only thing you're fighting The only thing you're fighting for is the ability to rip people off. You're not an entrepreneur and you're not a business owner. You're just someone who sells fake makeup to people and then laughs at them behind their back. Honestly, I see her completely different now. In the past, I viewed her as this genuinely horrible person who I couldn't stand being around. Now, she just feels silly to me. Someone who simply doesn't know when to quit, and all I can do is sit back and laugh at her sheer stupidity. Loved this story, and so glad the scammers got what they deserved. Honestly, I can't stand those Facebook ads trying to rip you off, and it's a big part of why I just stopped going on there entirely. It's like every other post is some obvious scam pretending to be something of high value. And don't even get me started on those stories of the girls dancing to try and drive traffic to some sketchy website. The whole platform just feels like nothing but trash now, and I don't know why anyone's still using it. I thought I was the only one feeling this way. It doesn't seem to matter how many times you click to hide something or say you're not interested, it just keeps showing you more of it. It's crazy because even reporting the obvious scams seems to just trigger the algorithm to show you even more of them. It's almost like the site is intentionally trying to drive you away or something. At this point, I'm convinced the platform is just running on autopilot and doesn't care at all about the user experience. I've worked in marketing for 10 years, and it's good that you don't fall for that stuff. But the sad reality is that plenty of people still do. Those scammy ads you're seeing are all coming from people who are paying the platform to run them. At the end of the day, the machine doesn't care who's getting scammed. It only cares that the advertiser paid them a few cents to put that sketchy ad in front of you. And those videos of the girls dancing or whatever else they're doing, it's a sad reality, but a lot of guys are going to click on those every single time. It's just the start of a funnel that's built to feed on your attention. The inner workings of these sites are actually pretty dark, and if people really understood how they worked, I think most people wouldn't use them anymore. You know, Karen, with all these commenters talking about Facebook, it's worth remembering that your attention is incredibly powerful. So if you ever feel like something is bringing you down, whether it's talking to certain people, scrolling through social media, or even watching things here on YouTube, you have every right to cut it out of your life.
Yeah, especially with YouTube. All the AI spam on here is enough to drive anyone crazy. Drop a "re" in the comments if you agree.
True, and reporting the spam never seems to do anything at all. But if you love our videos, be sure to hit that like button to let YouTube know, so they can start showing you our videos instead of that pesky spam. My wife has become fixated on her dead husband since getting pregnant with our first baby. My wife, 38 female, and I, 39 male, have been together for almost 4 years and married for a year. She's currently 16 weeks pregnant with our first baby. Since becoming pregnant, she seems to have become fixated on her deceased first husband, and I don't know how to bring it up without hurting her or making it sound like I'm jealous of a dead guy. Her first husband died in a motorcycle accident in late 2020. He was only 34 years old. They had been together for 8 years and trying for a baby at the time. She wasn't looking for a relationship when we started dating. After his death, she sold the house they had shared because she couldn't afford the mortgage on her own and found it too painful to stay there alone. She ended up buying a smaller house around the corner from my parents. My parents are retired and the type of people who strike up conversations with everyone, so they became friendly with her during her daily dog walks. One day, I mentioned that I thought she and her little dog were really cute, and my parents decided they should play matchmaker. She was extremely open with me about everything that had happened with her first husband. I understood that it was a huge part of her life and never expected her to erase that history or pretend he never existed. He would come up occasionally in conversation, which always felt normal and understandable. Dating someone who lost a spouse is different. There were moments early on when she admitted she felt guilty moving forward. Even becoming physically intimate was difficult for her at first because she felt like she was somehow betraying him. We took everything slowly and at her pace, and over time it felt like we had navigated those challenges together. But something has changed since she got pregnant. At least, I think that's when it started. I've noticed her frequently looking at old pictures of him on her phone, searching for him online, and even pulling up street view images of the house they used to share. She's bringing him up far more often than before and making constant offhand comments about things they did together. Then, this week, she asked if we could use his name as our baby's middle name. We're probably not going to find out whether we're having a boy or a girl until the baby is born, But his name would work either way. She actually admitted that if she were being completely honest, she'd prefer to ask for it as a first name, but she knew that would be going too far. I told her I'd need some time to think about it. Internally, though, my immediate reaction was absolutely not. The thing is, I genuinely feel terrible for this guy. From everything I've heard, he honestly sounds like someone I would have liked. What happened to him was unfair. Sometimes I tell myself I should just be grateful. I'm alive. I have a wife that I love. We're starting a family together. He never got the chance to have any of that. Part of me wonders whether it would really be such a big deal to let her have this one thing. Is it really a big deal if I let her use his name? At the same time, it feels weird. It feels hurtful. This should be one of the happiest periods of our lives together. Instead, she seems to be getting pulled deeper and deeper into memories of him. I've caught myself wondering things I'd rather not think about. If she could somehow choose between us, would she choose him? I don't generally feel insecure about our relationship, but seeing your wife stare at photos of another man every day, even one who passed away years ago, doesn't exactly feel great. I want to talk to her about it. I don't think she realizes I've seen what she's been looking at on her phone every day. I haven't been snooping. When she's sitting next to me and her screen is visible, it's pretty hard not to notice. She's also been incredibly emotional throughout the pregnancy so far, and I'm worried this conversation won't go over well. The last thing I want is to upset her or make her feel like she's doing something wrong. I don't want to come across as an insecure husband who's competing with basically a ghost. At the same time, I don't want her grief to overshadow this entire experience for us. Maybe that's selfish, I don't know. I don't doubt that she loves me. I'm not angry with her. I'm not trying to tell her how she should feel. I'm worried about her. I understand that pregnancy can be bringing back thoughts of her child they never got to have together. I understand why this might be triggering old feelings and grief isn't logical. Still, I don't know how to approach this. How can I bring all this up in the most sensitive way possible while also not simply agreeing to the name because I feel guilty? I don't think your wife is trying to hurt you at all. What stands out to me is that she and her late husband were actively trying for a baby when he died. Now she's pregnant years later, and she's probably grieving not only the man she lost, but also the future they never got to have together. That doesn't mean she wishes she wasn't with you. It means this pregnancy is forcing her to confront a lot of what could have been thoughts that she may have buried years before. I would approach this gently and with compassion, but I do think some form of grief counseling would be beneficial if she's willing. I actually feel for both of you here. Your wife is dealing with grief, pregnancy hormones, and memories all crashing together at once. At the same time, you're allowed to have feelings too. Seeing your spouse constantly looking at photos of a former partner would be difficult for almost anyone, regardless of the circumstances. The fact that you're more concerned about her well-being than your own hurt feelings says a lot about your character. I don't think you're being jealous. I think you're being human. The middle name request is where this really crossed from understandable grief into something that deserves a deeper conversation. Looking at old photos, reminiscing, and feeling emotional all makes sense. Wanting to incorporate his name into the child you're having with someone else is a much bigger ask. That doesn't make her a bad person, but it does suggest that this pregnancy has stirred up emotions she may not have fully processed yet. I'd focus less on the name itself and more on what's driving the request in the first place. Update. I'm posting a quick update because I'm still getting comments and advice on my original post, but the conversation I was looking for help with has already sort of come to an end. First off, thank you to everyone who offered advice. Reading through the responses helped me prepare for what ended up happening yesterday. We originally had several Memorial Day parties we were supposed to attend. Yesterday morning, my wife told me she just didn't feel up to going anywhere. Looking back, it seemed like the best opening I was going to get to ask her what was really going on. So I asked. I asked her what was wrong, what was bothering her, and if she would please talk to me. She immediately said nothing was wrong. She just didn't want to go anywhere, didn't want to get dressed up, and wanted to stay home in bed all day. A few moments later, she switched the conversation entirely and started talking about her pregnancy bump and how excited she was that it had suddenly become visible. She'd been waiting for weeks for it to happen and seemed genuinely thrilled that she finally looked pregnant. She kept talking about it, smiling and admiring it in the mirror. Then she told me she wanted it to just be the two of us that day. Needless to say, my attempt to start a serious conversation didn't exactly go according to plan. The thing is, she does this whenever she's uncomfortable. She changes the subject to something lighter and happier. This time it wasn't even obvious avoidance because she genuinely seemed excited and happy. I decided not to push the issue. A little later that afternoon, she got up to take a shower. When she came out, she told me she didn't want me to be upset, but she felt like she needed to go visit her late husband's parents and tell them about the baby in person. We hadn't talked about him all day. We hadn't discussed the name request or any of the concerns I'd written about before. Even so, it was obvious he had been on her mind the entire time. I've met his parents before. They're genuinely wonderful people. His dad is a little intimidating and jokingly threatened to hurt me if I ever hurt her, though it was obvious it came from a place of love and protectiveness. I asked if she wanted me to come with her. I wasn't trying to insert myself into the situation. I simply wanted her to know that I was available if she wanted support. She said she'd rather go alone, and I told her that was fine. She ended up being gone for several hours. When she finally came home, her eyes were swollen and her face was red from crying. The moment she walked through the door, she wrapped her arms around me and completely broke down. She kept apologizing. Over and over, she said she was sorry, that none of this was fair to me, that she didn't want to hurt me. She admitted she missed him terribly right now and couldn't stop thinking about him. She said she didn't even understand why it was hitting her this hard. I told her it was okay. I can't pretend to fully understand what she's experiencing. I've never been in her position. Still, I could tell she wanted to talk. Part of her also seemed terrified at hurting me by saying too much. Eventually, I asked what happened at his parents' house. She told me that they were incredibly happy for us. They cried, she cried. They talked about him. They talked about the baby. They said kind things about me. She said spending time with them made her feel close to him again. Then she told me something I didn't know. When we moved in together, she gave most of his belongings to his parents. That was entirely her choice. I never pressured her into getting rid of anything. After he died, she had kept absolutely everything. I'm not talking about a few shirts or some photographs. She still had all 3 of his motorcycles sitting in her garage 2 years later, including the motorcycle involved in the accident. Eventually, she decided she was ready to let go of those things and trusted his parents to care for them. While she was visiting them yesterday, she asked if she could see the motorcycles. That's when she found out they had gotten rid of the one involved in the accident. Apparently, it was no longer operable and was too painful for them to keep seeing every day. She completely fell apart when she heard that. She told me she wished they had informed her first. She said she would have wanted it. The strange thing is, she doesn't even ride motorcycles. Within minutes, she was online trying to track it down and talking about buying it back if she could find it. That was the first point where I started feeling genuinely concerned. It didn't feel like remembering him anymore. Now it felt like she was in genuine need of help. After leaving his parents' house, she drove through the neighborhood where they used to live together. Then she drove to the location where he had the accident. It's only a few minutes away from their old house. I generally try not to police her grief or tell her how she should process things. I know grief doesn't follow a schedule. At the same time, this felt different. I've seen her cry over him before. I've seen difficult anniversaries and emotional moments. This was on another level. Searching for the motorcycle, driving to the crash site, reliving every painful memory she could find, it felt like she was intentionally reopening wounds. Throughout all of it, she kept telling me she was a terrible wife and that she understood if I wanted to leave her. That part broke my heart. I'm not leaving her. Not over this. There were plenty of opportunities throughout our relationship where I could have walked away if I wasn't willing to accept the realities of loving someone who experienced this kind of loss. I chose to stay every single time. I reminded her of that. I told her I wasn't asking her to get over it. I just wanted to help her get through it. I want us to be able to enjoy this experience together. I want her to be happy. I want her to be excited about our child without feeling guilty about the life she lost. At this point, I'm not really sure what else I can do. I've made it clear that I'm here if she wants to talk. I've tried to reassure her that she doesn't need to hide her feelings from me. Part of me still thinks grief counseling would probably help. The problem is that she's extremely resistant to therapy. She always has been. Pushing too hard right now feels like it would only create more stress and make her retreat even further. For now, I think the best thing I can do is focus on the future we're building together and hope she joins me there when she's ready. As for the name request, I still haven't made a decision. I'm not promising anything. I am starting to understand where it's coming from a little better now. Maybe I was being selfish, maybe I wasn't. Either way, that conversation can wait for another day. This update actually makes me feel more worried, not less. Looking at old photos and reminiscing is one thing, but driving to the place where he died, obsessively searching for the motorcycle involved in the accident, and spiraling into guilt about her current marriage feels very different. It sounds less like nostalgia and more like she's getting trapped inside the worst moments of her grief. I really hope she eventually becomes open to talking with someone professionally. Pregnancy can bring up emotions people thought they had made peace with. OP continues to impress me throughout this entire story. A lot of people would have responded to this situation by making it about themselves, getting defensive, or treating it like a competition. Instead, he's recognizing that two things can be true at the same time. His wife deeply loves him, and she is also grieving someone she expected to spend her life with. Those realities don't cancel each other out. The amount of patience he's showing here is remarkable. The detail that stood out most here was her fear that he would leave her. That tells me she knows this isn't just a random emotional moment. On some level, she realizes how much she's struggling right now and how difficult it must be for her husband to witness it. I don't think she's choosing her late husband over her current one. I think she's suddenly facing the reality that she's about to have the child she once dreamed of having with someone who never got the chance to be here. That's a lot for anyone to carry. Update. The good news is that my wife seems to be doing noticeably better. Since Memorial Day, when she visited her former in-laws and had the emotional breakdown afterward, I've seen a gradual improvement in her mood and overall outlook. She said herself that she feels better and thinks she simply needed to get everything off her chest. According to her, telling them about the pregnancy, talking through some of the emotions she'd been carrying around, and having a really good cry helped to release a lot of what she'd been bottling up. I've noticed the difference too. I haven't seen her crying since then, and she hasn't been bringing up her late husband nearly as often. The fixation that seemed so intense a few weeks ago appears to be fading little by little each day. That doesn't mean she suddenly stopped thinking about him. I'm not naive enough to believe grief works that way. Nothing magically gets better overnight, especially when you're talking about someone she spent years of her life with and expected to grow old alongside. The difference is that he no longer seems to occupy every corner of her thoughts the way he did around Memorial Day weekend. One thing several people asked me about was the motorcycle. She really hasn't talked much about trying to find it since the day after Memorial Day, when she spent some time searching online. For clarification, the motorcycle wasn't completely destroyed. It wasn't operational anymore, but it wasn't a pile of scrap metal either. Somebody hit him, and he was thrown a considerable distance from the bike. He suffered far more damage than the motorcycle itself did. I still don't entirely understand why anyone would want to own a motorcycle that someone died on. At the same time, I realize it was never really about the motorcycle, it was about him. A lot of people also assumed she had been neglecting our families or prioritizing his family over ours. That's not really what happened. We had already shared the pregnancy news with both sides of our family weeks before she told his parents. She wasn't excluding anyone. She simply felt that his parents deserved to know as well. They were a huge part of her life for many years, and they've always treated her with kindness. A few people also seem to get the impression that she's been miserable for the entire pregnancy. That isn't true either. When she first found out she was pregnant, she was incredibly excited. She had been worried it might take a long time for us to conceive. It happened during the first month we started trying. She wasn't sitting around comparing that experience to the time she spent trying for a baby with her late husband. She wasn't crying about it or dwelling on it, she was simply excited. We've also already chosen potential first names for the baby. One thing that probably doesn't come across clearly in my earlier posts is that she was very intentional about not using the names she and her late husband had picked out years ago. She specifically wanted our baby's first name to be something we chose together. She wanted those names to belong to us. We've been talking about nursery colors, decorations, furniture, and all the usual things expecting parents talk about. She's excited about those plans too. All of that doesn't mean she isn't still carrying complicated emotions. It doesn't mean she's immune to postpartum depression later on. It doesn't mean every concern has completely disappeared. But what it does mean is that she's functioning. She's engaged in our life. She's excited about our future. She's preparing for our child. She's not spending every day trapped in grief. Looking back, even before Memorial Day, my biggest emotion wasn't concern so much as frustration. The constant references to her late husband and the middle name conversation irritated me more than they worried me. My concern really began after that weekend when everything seemed to escalate at once. Now, with a little distance, I'm starting to think that what happened may have been more of a painful bump in the road than a full-blown crisis. I've seen smaller versions of this happen before around difficult anniversaries and milestones. This one just happened to be bigger than usual. I did casually bring up the idea of talking to a professional, someone more qualified than me. That conversation didn't go particularly well. Her response was something along the lines of, "Do you just not want me to tell you anything then?" She followed that up by insisting she's fine and saying she wants to be allowed to feel sad sometimes without people immediately suggesting therapy. I understand where she's coming from. At the same time, I don't think grief counseling is some sort of punishment. I still believe it could help. For now, though, pushing harder feels like the wrong move. She knows my feelings on the subject. She knows the option exists. She's an adult and has to make that decision for herself. At this point, I'm choosing to focus on the progress I've seen rather than the problems I'm worried might happen someday. The woman I've spent the last few years building a life with is still here. She's excited about becoming a mother. She's excited about our child. She's excited about our future. For now, that's enough. This feels like one of the healthier updates I've seen in a while. Too many people were treating this like your wife was secretly still in love with someone else when the reality seems much simpler. She experienced a major loss. Pregnancy reopened an old wound, and she had an emotional setback. The fact that she's excited about your baby, your future, and the life you're building together is what matters the most. OP, I really hope you're okay with all of this. Maybe it's just me, but I know for a fact I wouldn't be happy or content in a relationship like this. You're trying to make the most of everything and fully focused on how she feels. But what about you? If she somehow had the choice between having him back or things staying the way they are now, it's obvious who she'd choose. If you're genuinely okay with that, then okay. But I don't see how anyone would be. I want to know that my partner wouldn't choose anyone instead of me if they had the chance. So Karen, was this really about her late husband, or was it about becoming pregnant and reopening a chapter that she thought she'd already closed?
Probably both. The motorcycle search and the crash site visit felt more like grief taking the wheel for a while.
Karen had a meltdown because I didn't wear makeup. This weekend, the family met up for Memorial Day. Just a casual family hangout for the holiday, nothing formal or any big event to celebrate. Even though I, 26 female, used to wear makeup when I was younger, I pretty much never wear it anymore, except on formal, special occasions, because it damaged my skin when I wore it every day. My aunt, who's 58, semi-recently moved back to the States after spending over 6 years living in various places in Europe, and this is the third time we've had a family gathering with her since she got back. The previous 2 times the family got together, it was a more formal occasion, and I wore makeup and a dress both times. This time, I wore my normal clothes, shorts, a button-down, sandals, and no makeup. The rest of my family was more or less as casual as I was, but all the women wear makeup on a daily basis except for me. I noticed my aunt was acting really strange around me, and when I asked her if everything was okay, she turned it around on me and asked if I was okay. I said, yeah, I'm fine. She said, "So why do you look like that?" And I didn't know what she meant at first, but she kept pressing until I realized she meant I wasn't wearing any makeup. I was kind of annoyed at her being so bothered by this, but I tried to stay calm and explain that I only wear makeup on special occasions. I really should not have said this because this apparently ruined her whole weekend. She started freaking out about how I don't consider seeing her to be a special occasion and ended up leaving the family gathering early and in tears. The next day was the Memorial Day parade, and it was my nephew's first time marching in the marching band, so kind of a special occasion, but still casual. My aunt, however, still angry from my special occasion comment, showed up in stained pajamas with her hair unbrushed. When my mom asked her to explain herself, she just said, "Well, OP doesn't think it's a special occasion, so why should I bother?" She attended the parade like that and repeated that line every time someone asked her if she was okay or why she was dressed like that. The rest of my family thinks that she's being unreasonable, but that it's also on me to talk her down from this grudge she's holding, or else she's going to keep acting out. What do I do? Update. Despite most of you suggesting that I just ignore her, I felt a sense of obligation and was under a lot of family pressure to try to talk to her one-on-one. Yesterday, I brought her a fresh-baked loaf of bread as a gesture of goodwill and called and told my uncle to warn her that I was coming over to talk. He had been off visiting his own parents over Memorial Day weekend, so he had only heard about her freakout. It did not go well. I tried to gently explain to her that when I said special occasion, I meant formal occasion, and that I always think it's special to see her and the rest of the family. She completely rejected my explanation and said that I can't tell someone they're not special and just turn around and say never mind, and said some nasty things about my appearance since again I wasn't wearing makeup. She finished out by taking the loaf of bread that I made for her and making sure I watched as she threw it in the garbage. At this point, I said, "I tried. I'm done. I can't help you," and I left. My uncle stopped me as I was leaving the house looking really upset. I assumed he was just embarrassed over my aunt's outburst, but he asked me to take a walk with him so he could talk. We walked around the neighborhood and he apologized for how my aunt has been acting, but started to cry. When he was able to talk again, he admitted that the reason they had come home from traveling in Europe is that my aunt had been diagnosed with early onset dementia. A lot of people were making jokes about that in the responses, but it turned out to be the actual explanation. She had never been on a hair trigger like that before she started showing signs. He wanted to keep it private until they weren't able to keep it private anymore, and he was having a hard time accepting that that time had already arrived. We cried together for a while, and he agreed that he needs to start the process of telling the family about her condition and looking into getting her some extra help. I talked to my mom about it afterwards, and she's really upset. She was scared that something like this might be the case because the way she showed up to the parade looking like a mess, it was so out of character, and that's why she wanted me to try to resolve it. She assumed that such a reaction meant I must have done something for it to at least partially be my fault. A lot of people had assumed she was just a lifelong narcissist who always acted out to get her way, but this is new behavior for her. Ultimately, I'm glad that I tried to make amends if it led to the truth. I quickly went from resenting my aunt to feeling extremely bad for her. Dementia runs in my family, but it usually takes until the late 80s or early 90s for it to set in. To deal with a disease that attacks our mind and personality so young is awful for her, for my uncle, and for their kids. So yeah, if your older loved ones suddenly start acting nasty in a way that they've never done before, maybe that's not nothing. Watch out for yourselves and your loved ones. Am I the jerk for reminding my friend that she married for intelligence and look where it got her? I, 35 female, met my husband Vince, 36, after he saved me from drowning at a pool when I was 18. I took him out for lunch the following week to thank him for saving me, and we soon fell in love and began dating. At the time, Vince worked a blue-collar job while I was studying in university. We ended up getting married, and Vince supported me throughout my entire education up until I got my PhD. Vince always told me that he wanted to study in university, but had learning disabilities that made it difficult for him to study in a classroom. At times, he was embarrassed by the fact that he had to work twice as hard compared to people around him, but I always found that to be admirable about him. When I finished my studies and got a well-paying job, I convinced Vince to give his dream of studying another go. Last year, he was finally accepted into a nursing program at our local university. He's working hard to achieve his dream, and I'm incredibly proud of him. Last week, my friend Alba, who's 36, came to visit with her son so that our kids could play together. Alba was my roommate during my first year in university. She began dating her husband Leo around the same time I started dating Vince. Leo was an obnoxious law student who later on became an even more obnoxious attorney. He was a know-it-all who prided himself on his intelligence, which for some reason attracted Alba. At the time, Alba would sometimes tease me that I could do better than Vince and would offer to set me up with one of Leo's law school buddies, but I would always refuse, and she eventually dropped the subject. Alba and Leo are currently going through a nasty divorce that stems from him cheating on her. Quite frankly, he's dragging her through the mud and he's using connections to try and leave her as penniless as possible. As we were chatting and catching up, Alba began to express concern over the fact that my eldest son, who's 7, because we found out recently that he's dyslexic. Alba began telling me how she's worried that he might have trouble in school like his father and what that could entail for his future. Before I could respond, she told me how I should have married someone smart while I had the chance, so that I would have kids like hers. Alba's son is incredibly bright and he's a straight-A student. I told Alba her advice was unnecessary and reminded her where marrying for intelligence got her. I then proceeded to tell her that I would rather have my son grow up to be an honest, hardworking person like his father than an academically gifted jerk who wasn't smart enough to know that hooking up with his secretary could have consequences on his marriage like her husband. Alba was deeply hurt by what I'd said and stormed out with her son. Some mutual friends are now chiming in and are telling me that what I said was too harsh on Alba for using her failing marriage to prove my point and that I should apologize. Update. I wanted to address a couple things. Many of you asked why Alba and I remained friends despite her previous remarks. Alba and I grew apart during our third year in university. We only remained friends by association since we have a lot of shared mutual friends. We became close again after our sons started playing basketball together at the local community center, and we became friends. I figured that becoming a mother made her more mature, and she didn't give me any reason to suspect otherwise. I've decided to send her a message saying that the way she spoke about my husband and my son was unacceptable, and therefore she's no longer welcome in my home. However, I don't want our sons to lose their friendship, and therefore I'm willing to remain civil around the kids and still organize playdates. She didn't reply to me just yet, but I truly hope she loves her son enough to put her ego aside and remain civil for the sake of our kids. I've yet to notify Vince about this entire situation since he is vigorously studying for an important quiz that's coming up next week, and I know that if he heard what Alba said about him and our kid, it would make him so upset and he won't be able to continue studying properly. She insults your husband and your son and then gets mad when you point out the qualities that she seems to think are lacking are the same ones that have her going through a really bad divorce? You are not harsh enough. Not the jerk. And you don't need friends like her. Not the jerk. I think it might be a sort of emotional defensive reflex thing on her end to keep her from acknowledging the fact that she married a really awful person. You definitely could have taken a minute before reacting in the heat of the moment, but I won't fault you for sticking up for your husband and especially not for your son. It's worth stressing that Alba insulted yours while you never got down to that level. You just dissed her for making poor life choices with a man that, if we're being real, probably had a ton of red flags. My heart still goes out to Alba. I chalk that up to her dealing with betrayal, compounded with the fear of what life will look like after the divorce. But she's still a grown woman. Fired from my job, but received a year's worth of pay and got my boss fired. This happened in the early 2010s, before the advancement of technology in video editing and content creation. I was hired as a content creator for a university that wanted to leverage YouTube to kickstart their branding campaign. The pay was low, roughly $2,200 US. And in those days, there were not that many video content creators around, and the process usually took a long time from start to finish. I was hired, and on my second day, my manager presented my KPI of 85 3 to 10 minute videos in 52 weeks, which was impossible for a one-man team in those days. This meant I had to do the scripting, producing, casting talents, shooting videos, composing music. They were too cheap to pay for a royalty-free music subscription, and editing. All of which I had to use my own equipment and software because their cameras and computers were so old, they simply couldn't handle the strain of even doing things in 720p, much less 1080p. I tried to let my manager know, but she just smiled encouragingly, telling me to give it a try, assuring me if the videos were good, the quantity would not be what she focused on. Hearing this, I agreed to give it a try. My manager treated me well in the first month. However, one day when she found out I was a smoker, her attitude changed overnight. A colleague had actually done a facepalm when I told her about it, and she let me know that the manager hated smokers and often advocated to get them fired. She started nitpicking me on everything, from smelling like cigarettes after my breaks, coming in 5 to 10 minutes late despite doing more than 4 hours of overtime daily, not being contactable during break times. The list goes on. But I soldiered on because I just wanted to do the work and do it well. 5 months in, I was called into the director's office where I saw my manager putting on her best, displeased but gleeful face, and I felt my stomach drop. The director told me that she was disappointed because she had heard that I was falling behind on my work, and it was already halfway through the year and I had only completed 30 out of 85 videos. I tried to explain that I had been working my butt off on these videos. I literally worked 6 days out of the week, over 60 hours just to do what needed to be done, and that being a one-man army made things impossible, and also the fact that the videos I had put up grossed the highest views ever on their YouTube page. I also recounted how my manager said that she was looking for quality videos over quantity. The director dismissed this and stated that the KPI was simply 85 videos in a year, and since it was almost half a year in with my numbers at less than half, she felt it prudent to cut the cord early. I asked how they would even meet the KPI if they were to fire me now. My manager had snorted, saying, "We'll find a professional production house to finish your work." The director had given her an odd look, but nodded in her support nonetheless, telling me You don't need to worry, manager will get the job done. That was when a light bulb went off in my head. Seeing as I was the content professional in the office, one of my jobs was to keep a database of production houses to use in the event that we needed to do a shoot that required more resources. And I was sure they would be using the production houses in my database, as my manager had no contacts in the production industry. So I changed the contact numbers and messed up all of the emails on all of the entries except one. The one where I had a friend working as a junior director. Not an assistant director, but a director assigned to smaller video projects. I gave him a call and told him of my plan, and sure enough, within 2 days, they were called to come in to pitch. I told him that I had a plan that was a win-win for us. It would instantly help him and put him in the fast track to a director position by bringing in that much business to his production house, and it would also benefit me financially. I would teach him exactly how to pitch to win over the boss and the director, and in turn, his company would pay me a standard finder's fee of 15%. He agreed instantly and immediately put me on the line with his general manager, who upon realizing this was to be 6 months of work for a high 6-digit payout, instantly agreed and drew up a contract. As it turns out, after I gave them a metaphorical step-by-step playbook, they were the perfect fit. Somehow understanding the needs and style of the university as well as the sort of themes the university wanted to feature. The director and my former boss were amazed that my friend's production house was so familiar with their content that they signed them on the spot. Now, even back then, using a production house was not cheap. Each video that they produced could cost double to triple my monthly salary given that they had specialized people for each function. Producer, director, director of photography, etc. But this meant that they could complete a video every 2 to 3 days. So yes, they produced 50 videos in a span of 4 months for over 100 months of my salary. And I sat back and collected the healthy 15%, which was about 15 months of my salary. This allowed me to put money aside for a holiday and the rest to further my studies with a respected film school overseas. I thought my plan ended here and I had gotten back at my former bosses. But to my surprise, I received a call from my colleague while I was on vacation in Bali one day. This was the same colleague who had facepalmed when I told her that my manager had found out that I was a smoker. She told me that my former manager had been fired and my director given a massive blasting by the chancellor of the university. The content creation project, which I was hired for, was only given a budget equating to about 1.5 years of my salary, and they had exceeded that budget by over 10 times. My former manager was so desperate to ensure that her content creation projects could be completed that she had thrown caution to the wind, paying anything to get the job done as long as she could show my director that she had completed the project and had approved the massive spend without getting consent from the director. So that is how I got my friend a super fast promotion to a full director in his production house and 1 year of pay after getting unfairly fired from my job. Today I messed up by getting caught by my wife about my lawn mowing scheme. Let me preface this by saying that I really enjoy mowing my lawn. My wife and I bought our house 5 years ago, and ever since, mowing the lawn has just brought out this peace inside of me. So much so that I sold our riding lawnmower and I bought a push mower. There's something so calm and relaxing about mowing at about 6:30 p.m. on a summer day. The sounds of the mower, the smell of the grass being cut, and overall, the world around me. Much of it reminds me of my kid days riding our bikes around the neighborhood on summer evenings. Sometimes I listen to a podcast or music, but mostly it's just taking in the sounds of the outside. I like it so much that I will literally mow every 3 days, even if the grass barely needs a centimeter taken off the top. I will mow. My wife, however, thinks this is ridiculous. She thinks more than once every 7 to 10 days is absurd. She may be right, but it's not like I'm asking for much, as it takes a whole 90 minutes to push mow the entire yard. I'm essentially taking 3 to 3.5 hours a week of Zen time. I noticed over time, as we would come home during the day, her way of gauging whether the lawn needed to be mowed was the length in the ditch at the mailbox. This is an area I tend to actually skip mowing and keep this particular area on a 1 to 1.5 week trim cycle because it is kind of a pain to do that spot, and we are on a country road, so it isn't exactly a curb appeal factor. After noticing this, I started raising the deck height on the mower to keep the grass higher in that spot, and sure enough, she would keep saying how the grass would need to be mowed, which means I was good to go as usual on my 3-day mow cycle. This went well for 2 years until last night at dinner with friends. Drinks were flowing, laughs were being had, and our friend brought up mowing. The girls had this conversation about men and their toys, yada yada, and during the laughs, I blurted out to the male friend, "Just do what I do and purposely make an area seem longer than it is," which was met with laughter from all of us except my wife. After about 10 seconds of laughter, I felt this intense heat on the right side of my face. It's a very familiar heat, very distinct. Once I calmed down from laughing, it set in instantly what I just said. The heat I was feeling was the indescribable fury of her staring a hole through me. It was a very quiet night, and so far, a very quiet morning. Edit. We have no kids or neighbors to upset. Edit 2. We have essentially no other tasks. We are very routine with things. I cook every night, then load the dishwasher. The vacuuming takes care of itself, and we spot mop. I go to trash disposal on Saturdays since we're rural with no trash pickup. We go to the grocery store together every Saturday, and she does laundry on Saturdays. We work in the same office on the same schedule, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and obviously ride together every single day. I thought she was my friend. I have a coworker that I thought was my friend. We've worked together for almost a year. A few months ago, she walked out on her job. She wanted to come back, and I got her job back. I've loaned her money, bought her food when she didn't have any, and even defended her on multiple occasions. Well, yesterday, I found out that she's been talking mad crap behind my back and flat out lying about me to the new employees. It really hurt because I've done so much for her. I was on closing shift last night, so I had to do the deposit. On the top of the deposit bag, we write our tips so that we can minus it in the daily operating report to see if we're short. And we leave the top of the deposit bag on the desk because the deposit bag number is needed to open the store in the morning. I know for a fact that this coworker gets angry when she sees people getting large tips. It makes her jealous because she's really bad with money and always broke. And because of how she treats customers, she never gets tips. I decided to write a fake number for my tips. I only got like $8 in tips, but I wrote 48, knowing it was going to totally destroy her whole day. There's no way for her to verify my tips, and writing a fake number down doesn't affect anything at all. It's not like it will mess up count or anything. And 48 in tips wouldn't be common, but not unheard of for a Friday night. I've gotten larger tips for the night. Then, today, she texted me, asking if I could come into work an hour early so she could leave an hour early. I've never told her no before. I've also helped her out when she asked. But today I rocked the boat and told her no. I know she's at work right now totally fuming because she thinks I got large tips and because I wouldn't come in early for her to leave. I'm sitting here eating my dinner in my car feeling satisfied for the moment. Update. So I didn't expect my pettiness to have such an effect on her. I got to work tonight, and as soon as I walked in the door, she started slamming things around and throwing stuff. I went straight into the bathroom and texted my GM. He immediately got on the security cams and started watching her. I kept my head down and my mouth shut and said absolutely nothing to her. After watching her for about 5 minutes, he hopped in his car and came straight to work, on his day off. She still didn't stop slamming stuff around, but it wasn't quite as violent once he got to work. He told me he was going to have a sit-down with her tomorrow about her behavior and her creating a hostile work environment for everyone whenever she behaves this way. My GM said he hopes she quits tomorrow so we don't have to deal with her anymore. Update 2. I have a routine before work. I usually leave an hour and a half before work, grab some dinner, and then sit in the parking lot playing Pokemon Go. I drive by work, and her car is there, so obviously she didn't walk out. I was really hoping to see my GM's car there and not hers. Let's see how she's behaving today after my GM spoke with her. Final update. I get to work, and she starts slamming stuff around again. I just keep my head down and ignore her. I text the GM. She then calls the GM and lies about a few things. Whatever. I don't care at this point. GM confronts her about slamming things around. She denies it, hangs up on him, leaves her key in the office, and clocks out and leaves. On her way out the door, she threatened to sue me for defamation of character. I almost laughed in her face, but I just ignored her. Looks like the trash finally took itself out. My wife, who's 27, wants me, 31 male, to cancel our prenup. It's making us fight. Should I? So we got married in September for 2 reasons. 1, we love each other, but also 2, because my wife is not a US citizen and the visa process was horrible. Getting married solved the paperwork problem for her. If we didn't get married, we would have to break up because she wouldn't be allowed to stay here. But we had only been going out for a year. Also, I had a lot more money saved than her. approximately $100,000 difference. So we got a prenup with a sunset clause of 6 years, and she was happy to do so. But sometimes she becomes unhappy when she remembers we have a prenup. For me, the prenup was just in case we get a divorce, but now it might be the reason why we get a divorce. It makes her so unhappy that she yells at me. She has this problem generally too, where she becomes angry, she yells, and it makes me sad to think that this is my life now, being with someone who yells at me. I want her to not be angry at me, so getting rid of the prenup is tempting, but I also don't want to be done for if we get rid of the prenup and our relationship sours for a different reason. Edit. A lot of people here are saying she doesn't really love me and that she's just using me for the visa and wants my money when we divorce. I understand your point of view, but she's Chinese and I'm Chinese American. I understand her perspective from a Chinese point of view that a prenup is really weird and makes it not a real marriage. Edit 2. Everyone telling me I should divorce her, I get it. But a divorce isn't that simple. She just got her green card for 2 years, and apparently I'm on the hook to support her financially even if our marriage doesn't work out. Right now I'm trying to set us up with a marriage counselor to see if we can work through it, because I do believe there are aspects to our situation that are inherently unfair to her. The prenup she did sign under threat of leaving the country, so maybe it was under duress. Edit 3. So she also said she would be happy if we amended our prenup by removing a clause that states property and money acquired during the marriage would remain separate property. She's fine with changing the prenup, so the money we take in now just becomes marital property. It's not a huge difference. She's an architectural designer, $72K a year, and I'm a teacher, $98K a year. Although I have a 401k and she doesn't. Someday she'll probably make more money than me. That said, I want to be careful before I sign anything. She just made an amendment in pen and ink to our existing prenup and signed it. She's waiting for my signature now. I will try and talk to a lawyer. I want us to see a marriage counselor, but she doesn't want to. My main issue isn't the money, it's the way she communicates about our problems. Edit 4. So she gave me an ultimatum. Sign the amended prenup or we get a divorce. Edit 5. I'll make a decision later. I told her by the end of the week. The truth is, I want a happy, peaceful relationship with her. But her unwillingness to see a marriage counselor or talk things over like adults, man, I was just so close to being happy. I'm really sad this might be the end of our relationship, fighting over a prenup. Sounds to me like she just married you for the free ride and didn't fully understand the prenup and thought she could bully you into dropping it. You say you love each other, but I'm not so sure it's mutual. This is not the behavior of someone you love. Chinese American male here. Was in the exact same situation 2 years ago with my ex-Chinese wife. I canceled the prenup because she kept insisting it was ruining our marriage. Well, she ended things shortly after and we got divorced. I didn't have too much saved up, but still, it sucks starting over. Years later, she reached out to me apologizing, trying to get back together. She admitted her intention was to get a visa and take money when we got married and voided the prenup. My caring girlfriend dumped me for falling asleep in the wrong place. My girlfriend, Celine, who's 20, and I, 21 male, have been dating for about 7 months now, but I had feelings for her for like 3 years beforehand. I have also been sharing a flat with 2 other girls and 1 other guy. One of the girls is Kaya, and we're pretty good friends. As it just so happens, Celine's ex cheated on her with Kaya. Kaya hadn't known they were together at the time, so when I first brought Celine over to my place earlier into our relationship, she told me about what had happened. I realized then that things would be messy, and I asked Celine if this was a deal breaker for her, but she said she wasn't sure, as she was aware that Kaya didn't realize she was facilitating cheating. The next day, Celine said that she thought it over and that she held no resentment towards Kaya, but was insecure about herself and felt uneasy that we lived in the same house. We both agreed to continue with the relationship and set our boundaries. One of them was that Kaya and I won't sleep over in each other's rooms anymore. We used to have movie nights on Fridays. Kaya's room was the only room with a TV in my flat, and I'd sometimes fall asleep in her room during movie nights. Everything was platonic, and I told Celine about this. Let's move to the present time, where our relationship is like a fairy tale. Being with Celine is pretty awesome, but my exams are coming up soon, and because I'm horribly underprepared, I need to lock in. So I told Celine I would have to be a bit selfish and wouldn't be able to spend time with her or have much communication until they're done. For the past 3 weeks, my life has been wake up, spend the entire day and night at the library, then come home to sleep for 5 or 6 hours, then go study again. It's a horrible routine and I feel like a zombie, but I have too much content to catch up on and not enough time. I must also admit that I've not been in contact with Celine all that often. We only talked twice on FaceTime and texted very little. She tried initiating, but I had my phone shut off while studying, and I only replied when I left the library. On our second call, she said she felt neglected, and it was really starting to get to her, and she wanted to spend some time together. I apologized, told her I missed her too, and that she could come over tonight to spend the night. But she came about an hour later than she was supposed to, and I had fallen asleep by then. She still stayed the night, but the next morning, I felt that she was upset I fell asleep. Then I got really sick 3 days ago. I threw up at the library and asked Kaya to come pick me up. My other roommates are out of town, and Celine would have taken too long to get there. When I got into bed, I threw up all over my sheets. At this point, my memory of what happened is foggy. I was very drowsy and not thinking straight. Rather than cleaning up and setting new sheets, I texted Celine I was very sick and I had thrown up in my bed, and I asked if I could sleep over at hers. I got no reply, so I went downstairs and slept on the couch. When I woke up the next morning, I was asleep on Kaya's bed. I had no clue how I got there, but Celine came to check on me, and she walked in on me like this. This was when I woke up, and Celine was very upset. She yelled, "How could you?" And before I had the chance to say anything, she left. Kaya told me that when she saw me asleep on the couch, she offered to let me sleep on her bed instead. I have no recollection of this. I probably had taken my shirt off because I felt hot at some point during the night. She also said she slept on the couch and we didn't share the bed. I've been trying to reach out to Celine, but she blocked my number, my WhatsApp, and my Instagram. We have 2 mutual friends, but they both haven't replied to any of my texts. My fever went down yesterday night, so I went to Celine's to clarify the situation, but her roommate said she wasn't going to talk and made me leave. This whole situation just feels horrible. I love the relationship that I have, or had, with Celine, and the fact that it's probably over makes me feel so distraught. I also reflected over how I've been recently, and I realized that a lot of the blame goes on me. My exams aren't a reason to just completely shut myself out of my relationship, and I need to work on being able to juggle life and studies at the same time. Other than her finding me asleep on Kaya's bed, she's probably been really frustrated with me over these past 3 weeks of me not being in contact. It's painful knowing I made a very unnecessary decision, and had I put in more effort, I wouldn't have cost me the greatest person in my life. You spoke with your girlfriend twice in 3 weeks? That's not how relationships work, buddy. This girl already hooked up with her last boyfriend. The fact she even decided she could deal with you guys living together is huge. Then you tell her you have platonic movie nights that end up with you guys sleeping together in her room. At that point, I would have left, but she still asked for a simple boundary. You hardly talk to her or make time for her for weeks. A simple text or a phone call is very easy, and at that point, I would assume something was up. Then she literally finds you in the other girl's bed. You're either lying and have interest in that girl, or you don't actually care about your girlfriend. I'd be out. Update. Since I'm such a horrible person, most of you will be happy to know that we're no longer together. My friendship ended because I won't pay for someone to go on a trip. Realizing that I had a leech as a friend and I'm disappointed in myself. Lori always wants to participate but never contributes. And most of the time, it never really bothered me. Our group of 6 always contributed extra for things like concerts, weekend trips, and so on. In high school, it was because Lori came from a poor family and wasn't able to get a job due to having to watch her 4 younger siblings. Then in college, it was because she couldn't work and maintain her grades without losing her scholarship. Now she can't contribute anything because she's struggling financially and didn't have the means to save anything. And I got upset, admittedly, because she spends her money in crappy ways. We've been planning this trip for 4 years. I know it's awful to look at what someone has and judge their finances, but Lori is the same person who had no expenses during the lockdown because she was living with me and my great-grandmother. She didn't pay for groceries, wasn't charged rent, still had her job, was getting hazard pay. Lori waited until it came time to start paying for everything to say she didn't have it. She said this to me one-on-one. While we were out shopping for the trip, her idea. Lori wanted to go to stores that weren't cheap. I asked if she was sure, and she claimed she wanted to treat herself. She spent just over $1,300, and then we go to lunch, and she has the nerve to tell me she can't afford the trip, a whopping $2,683 per person for 15 days. Of course I said no, and guess what? She brings in the rest of the group 2 days later, and all of them are on board with splitting her expenses. Translation, they would cover half the costs among them, and I'd be stuck with the other half because I make the most money. And saying no means I'm a jerk. And me calling out Lori for her behavior was too harsh and uncalled for. They claim that she deserved to feel good about herself after the life she's had, like I wasn't raised by my grandparents and ignored by my parents in favor of their stepkids, wasn't working through high school and maintaining my grades to be valedictorian, like I wasn't struggling until I got a good internship because I had to work. Yeah, I'm financially secure now, but why the heck should Lori be rewarded for bad spending habits? They're all upset now because I told them I'd go on a trip by myself. They didn't think I'd cancel it and go through with booking a trip for myself. It's costing me more, but forget them. They want Lori to go on a trip, they can plan one and take her without me involved. What kind of mental hold does she have on you folks? She has some type of Professor X type powers. What does she bring to the group that allows her to mooch off of everyone? That's crazy. OP, it's legitimately just pity at this point. All of them focus heavily on how she had an awful life growing up, which I'm not going to dispute. Lori's life sucked, and the only way she was able to do anything with us was if my grandparents watched her siblings. But can she seriously use that as an excuse to be so irresponsible for the rest of her life? Seriously, she blew half the cost of the trip in my face. That's an expensive leech. Glad you finally called her out. Probably should have happened a long time ago. Are the other people aware that the moment she asked, well, demanded really, that you pay for her trip, she just spent half of that trip's cost on random stuff a few hours prior? If not, that's info they need. If they don't care about that, they weren't really your friends to begin with. If you look back at the group dynamic, are you the one who usually ends up paying a bigger share just because you have a better paying job? Or did the others contribute equally and Lori was the only leech? OP. At first, Lori was the only leech, but the ongoing text argument, yeah, I've been the one footing a larger share. It wasn't obvious at first, but what's expected of me as a friend is disproportionate to what's expected of them. Update. Seriously, I get called mean, selfish, cruel, and a bunch of other insults for not bankrolling an idiot's life, decide to cut contact and end the friendship, and now they want to make up? Lori, the primary leech, has horrible spending habits. She'll blow her money on designer clothing and shoes and then ask you to cover her expenses for trips. And the more I think about how much money I've wasted on her over the years, the angrier I become. Lori has apparently burned more bridges in the week or so I've been no contact. They apparently decided that they can't afford to bring Lori on a similar trip to what I had originally planned for us. It was 15 days split between Portugal, Spain, and Italy. One of the group, Jenna, went to my grandpa because she couldn't get in contact with me. I had blocked all of them, mainly because I got sick of arguing. Grandpa told her now wasn't a good time, though refused to give her any details. She came back 4 days in a row until he relented. He called me for her and gave me the gist of things before I told him to send her to the coffee shop I was at. A post for another day because I'm still processing my earlier meeting and I know I'll need to vent about it. The meeting with Jenna went horribly. She started by telling me the group had planned a new trip and she knows I'm mad, but canceling on them and then not sharing the agency was really cruel. They found an agency to travel through, but to keep the time they had off from work means they have to pay more. Cheapest they could get was $4,000 a person. I didn't respond, mainly because, yes, she continued to blame me for their crap like it wasn't their fault I canceled and stopped talking to them. When I told her that it was their fault, Jenna agreed that it was. She revealed that they tried to talk Lori into returning everything she bought so that she could contribute to her part. In her words, they can't afford half the things I can. Jenna personally believes that Lori's need for designer things is because of me. I didn't snap immediately at this, and I let her ramble about it. I know you don't notice it, but you're always wearing nice things and spending money on nice places. You're always buying expensive makeup, getting your nails and hair done. She just wants that lifestyle too, and it's like you're rubbing it in her face. All of us are at fault. And yes, I do spend my money on those things. But as I told Lori and now Jenna, I can afford that lifestyle. I budget for those things. I thrift shop, and a good number of my nice things are secondhand. Yes, I put a lot of effort into my appearance, but I also live below my means. I live in the house my great-grandmother owns outright and pay utilities, shop in bulk and local markets for food, and I have good insurance that covers grandma's medical expenses. I, again, thrift for my nicer things, or I save for them, or wait for a sale. I have enough in my lost my job savings account to last a year. Yes, I have a savings account just for that, and I continue to add to it from every paycheck. Everyone that knows me is aware of how I can afford what I can afford. I don't make an effort to hide this. However, it's not my fault Lori refuses to be smart with her spending. I said all of this to Jenna, and she had the nerve to cry. She said not everyone can have that type of security, and unlike me, they can't afford a last-minute trip, and Lori especially couldn't. I cut her off when she started on Lori's sad childhood, and I told her to just let it be. I told her she was fixated on my finances and lifestyle, but that wasn't my fault. She and the rest of the group all have decent careers. They all had better safety nets than I did, and it made them complacent. I didn't have that. Yes, I was middle class growing up, but I wasn't as well off as them. Yes, I had a grandpa who would spoil me, but it wasn't to the extent they think. I still drive his old Impala. I was the first in our friend group to get a car, right? Because his eyesight was going bad. He couldn't drive me around like their parents could. And don't get me started on college itself. Lori had a financial aid packet because she was poor. Jenna and the rest had family that could pay off their tuition and living costs, and I got barely anything aid-wise and had to work because my grandparents couldn't afford it, and my parents refused to acknowledge me. If I hadn't landed an internship turned career that paid off my education, I'd still be in debt. Jenna kept crying, and I told her to stop, that I'm sick of them and their crying. I threw her getting cut off by her parents in her face, told her that it was because she's a financial leech just like Lori, and that was a her problem. I'm sick of them acting like I'm the problem, and I was done listening to her efforts to villainize me. Rather than whining, maybe she should think about why her parents cut her off, and why I am also cutting her off, because she likes to blame everyone and everything for her failures. I shouldn't have said it, but I did. You got kicked out for stealing someone's essay. You wasted their money, and I darn sure won't let you waste mine. Grow up, and don't ever bother my family again. Then I left her there crying. Not my finest moment, but seriously, what's wrong with people? Am I the jerk for not offering support to my dad's wife and laughing at her when she asked for it? My dad's wife found out 6 weeks ago that he's been cheating on her for years. They have 3 kids together, and she had no idea he was cheating. His wife, who I'll call Anne for this post, was my dad's affair partner when he was married to my mom. I was like 8 when we found out, and how that happened was my dad brought Anne over to pick up his stuff because he wanted to move in with her. Neither of them gave a hoot that I was there. A few weeks later, my mom passed in an accident, and I moved in with my dad and Anne. But I didn't look at either of them in a positive light. I still don't, and I'm 17 now. Anne and I butted heads a lot over the years. She would talk about deserving more respect, and I told her she was just the lady my dad cheated on mom with, and she'd never be more than that in my eyes. I told her I didn't respect her as a person or as a supposed family member. Dad tried to get me to see him more positively at first, but when he realized I'd ask the big questions like why he did that to my mom and me, he stopped trying. I always assumed he found a new mistress, but didn't have proof until a year and a half ago when I saw him with another woman. I said nothing, and I carried on waiting for the day she found out. There were times I wanted to rub it into her face so bad, but I didn't. I was laughing at her behind her back, and I'll admit that. When Anne found out, she kicked Dad out, and I moved out with him. This was seen as a controversial choice because Anne wanted me to stay, and since everything went down, Anne has wanted me to visit her and wanted me to be with her and Dad's kids. I'm not close to the kids and don't really care about having a relationship with them. Last week, Dad brought me by Anne's place to pick up more of his and our stuff. Anne's family were there, and Anne and her family were scolding me for choosing Dad over Anne and saying Anne deserved my support, that they couldn't believe I'd pick Dad's side over hers. I said I picked neither side, but Anne means nothing to me, so I'm not going to do crap for her. Anne's mom told me Anne was a victim. I told them she cheated with a married man and shouldn't be shocked that he'd do the same to her because she's nothing special. They kept engaging with me, and my dad was taking his sweet time. Anne decided to talk to me one-on-one and asked me to stand by her and support her and help her give the kids a good life and show that we're still a family. I laughed in her face. Anne started to cry. Her family asked her about it, and she told them that I had laughed. They called me disgusting and cruel and said that I should be ashamed of treating someone in my family like that. Anne's sister sent me a few DMs before I locked down my socials, but she said I should apologize to Anne and be there for her now to make up for my reaction to her. She told me to be a better man and not some pathetic kid who blames the woman for stuff. Am I the jerk? Well, you know the old saying, when a man marries his mistress, he opens up a new vacancy. It's crazy how affair partners act so shocked that a cheater cheats. If he cheated to be with you, then he'll cheat on you. You ain't special. Not the jerk. I don't know why she was so desperate for your support when you've been obvious in your dislike of her for years. It's like touching a hot stove and being shocked and upset when it burns you. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend family events on my wife's side unless she stands up for herself? My wife, 35 female, and I, 36 male, have been married for 4 years and we have 2 kids who are 3 and 1. My wife's parents divorced when she was a teenager and both her mom and dad have since remarried. There's a lot of competition between her mom, dad, and stepmom in terms of family time. Everything has to be equal, meaning if we spend an afternoon with her mom, then we have to do the same with her dad and stepmom. Mom and stepmom especially put a lot of pressure on my wife and guilt trip her about this. My wife has a lot of trouble standing up for herself and saying no. Before we had kids, this wasn't as big of a deal. If we had to attend 2 to 3 different Thanksgivings or Christmas gatherings, not a huge deal. I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. Now though, with 2 young kids, it's exhausting and I absolutely hate it. My wife and I had numerous talks about her setting boundaries about this because I'm at the end of my rope with it. The bickering and pressure is constant and the need to keep everything equal essentially determines our entire non-work schedule. We had to attend 2 separate Easter events this spring. We're not even religious because we went to one with her mom, so we had to do one with her dad and stepmom. After that, I told my wife I was done with this BS. I told her that she needs to stand up to her parents and start setting boundaries and saying no. I told her I won't allow her parents to continue to dictate how we live our lives. I told her if she's incapable of doing this, then I will absolutely step in and tell them off. But she begged me not to do that because she doesn't want to ruffle feathers and promised she would do better. Of course, that didn't happen. We ended up having to run around to 3 separate places on Memorial Weekend because of the same stuff. After we got home from the last stop, I told my wife I'm done with this and will now pick and choose which things I want to go to. I won't stop her from going, and I will stay home with one or both of the kids if she doesn't want to take them, but I'm done. Lo and behold, this past weekend, she was talking to her mom and 4th of July came up. My father-in-law had already invited us to his house for a pool day, and my wife told her mom about it. So, of course, we have to do something with them that weekend as well. When my wife told me about this, I told her that I will not be attending both and I will choose if I want to attend either. My wife must have vented to her mom about this because a couple days later I got a call from my wife's stepdad, the only sane person in this really. He told me that he completely agrees with me and that he's talked with his wife numerous times about not pressuring my wife, but she doesn't listen either. He suggested that whenever his wife pressures my wife into keeping things equal, that he and I go golfing together instead. When I told my wife about this idea, she called me a jerk and told me I'm being unsupportive. Not the jerk, but you two need to work on this to find a solution. Personally, the solution should be along the lines of telling everyone, we have 2 kids. It's just not possible to keep running around to different households for events and holidays. We're finding that we don't have time to establish our own traditions with the kids because we're trying to keep the peace between you two. With this in mind, we will be alternating holidays and choosing to skip some that we want to keep to ourselves. Should we host, invitations will be extended to everyone, and we expect a civil gathering. If you don't feel you can contribute to that environment for the sake of the kids, then please RSVP no. Thank you for understanding. Your wife calling you unsupportive just reads as she needs someone to stand up for her because she doesn't want to do it for herself. Have a talk with your wife about how exhausting this is for you. Focus on wanting to spend more quiet time with her and the kids instead of not wanting to do things with her family. Something you don't mention is your family. When do you spend time with them if you're divvying up holidays between your 2 gatherings you're already doing of just her family? OP. I didn't include it in my post because of the character limits, but this is a huge issue for us too. Time spent with my side of the family is drastically smaller than the amount we spend with her side. Thankfully, my parents are not insane and feel bad for my wife's situation. But I do miss spending extended time with them over holidays rather than rushing from place to see everybody. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my parents for forgetting my birthday? I, 33 female, just had my birthday last week. The only problem is that no one in my family remembered. My maternal grandfather passed away about a month ago, and my entire family, mom, dad, and 2 younger brothers, flew back to my mother's home country for the funeral. I unfortunately could not go as I've only recently started a new job. I wasn't particularly close to my grandfather, so I wasn't too upset about staying behind. My family was gone for a total of 22 days, and we FaceTimed and stayed in constant communication during their trip. I think it's great that my mom got to reconnect with family and that my brothers got a chance to meet everyone. They got back last Wednesday and have been readjusting due to jet lag since then, understandably. My birthday was last Friday, 2 days after they got back. To be honest, I wasn't expecting more than birthday wishes from everyone, but the day passed without a word from anyone. Was I annoyed? Sure, but I wasn't too upset. I'm not the biggest birthday person. I ended up having a nice birthday dinner with my boyfriend and a few friends. All heck broke loose Saturday afternoon when I got a really angry phone call from my dad. I guess my boyfriend did a special Instagram post for me, and my brother saw it and showed my parents. I had no idea he did this, as he isn't a big poster. Anyway, I could hear my mom crying in the background while my dad laid into me, saying that they were sorry they forgot, but not saying anything and then posting about it online was passive-aggressive and mean. I told him that I wasn't upset and that I didn't think a 33rd birthday was that big of a deal anyway. He said a few more things before abruptly ending the call. I didn't hear back from my family the rest of the weekend. Today, Monday, I woke up to a bunch of notifications. I guess my mom did a Facebook post talking about ungrateful kids and how I ruined their surprise party for me and tagged me. My extended family seemed to agree that I was a jerk. I've tried calling my mom, but she didn't answer, so I posted my own reply and said, "You guys forgot, and no one wished me a happy birthday, unless you count Dad calling and yelling at me. Both of my parents have been calling all morning, but I don't want to take their calls yet. Am I the jerk?" Update. After everything that happened yesterday, I told my boyfriend about the Facebook thing, and he agreed that I should just not deal with it for the day. I turned my phone off and just chilled out. Around 6 p.m., my boyfriend got a text from my brothers asking if they could come by because they wanted to see me and bring me the candy they brought back for me. I agreed and they came over, along with my parents. At this point, I was annoyed to see my parents, but we let everyone in. My boyfriend made sure I was all right and took my brothers out back so I could be alone with my parents. My mom started crying immediately and sobbed out an "I'm sorry." I don't know about you, but seeing my mom cry started to make me cry. My dad then explained what happened. Apparently, they absolutely forgot about my birthday. Again, understandable. My paternal aunt had come over on Saturday to see my parents. It's worth noting that she does not like my mom for whatever reason. Since he's been around for the last 4 years, my boyfriend follows my brothers and a few of my cousins and vice versa. My cousins saw the post, showed my aunt, and she asked my mom how my birthday went. Side note, my extended family did reach out to wish me a happy birthday. They just didn't know my family forgot. I guess my mom was caught out, and my aunt went in on her for being a bad mother and all of that, and saying at least I have my boyfriend. My dad got upset, told my aunt to leave, and said they already had something planned. They didn't. That's when he called me. They never saw the post, and I was wrong thinking my brothers showed them. My dad said he felt awful for yelling and then he apologized, but explained that he hated seeing his wife so upset. They took the weekend to cool down, but as many of you guessed, my mom tried to save face on Facebook. She explained that she didn't think I would see it since I'm not usually on. What she didn't realize is that when she typed my name in the post, my username populated, so it tagged me. She was shocked and embarrassed when I responded and started getting calls and texts from the extended family. She came clean to my dad about it, and that's when they tried calling, but I wouldn't answer. My mom looked very distraught, and I just told her that everything was okay and that I'm sorry that I responded the way I did. It's evident that she's taking her father's passing extremely hard, and I don't want to pile more onto her. Now's not the time. My dad said it was a few days late, but he'd love to order pizza and just hang out. I agreed. My boyfriend and brothers came inside, and we spent a few hours listening to stories about my grandfather and my mom's childhood. It's definitely a birthday I won't forget, but I guess all's well that ends well. I would also like to point out that we do not like my dad's sister. She's an awful person, but my cousins are amazing, so my dad tolerates her. My mom can usually handle herself around my aunt, but she's in a really vulnerable state, which is how this escalated. I'll probably talk to her about it again, just not anytime soon. Not saying you should cut your parents off by any means, but this is the most horrible apology. Your father called and screamed at you because he forgot your birthday. Your mother made up a fake party and called you an ungrateful brat on the internet, thinking you'd never see it, so that you look like the bad guy. Their insults were incredibly public and nasty, and their apology was secretive. I'd ask for an apology as public as the insult. I'm sure they're embarrassed. They should be. Sure, your mom's father passed, but that's no excuse for dad to forget. And if they had forgotten or been off on the date because of jet lag, that would have been one thing. That's not what happened though.
Karen betrays me and goes after my ex-boyfriend.
even though she knows how in love with him I still am. I'm 32, female, and my ex-boyfriend is male, 35. We broke up about 5 months ago after 4 years together. He's the most amazing guy, and I love him so much. These past few months have been the worst of my life. He's very handsome and successful, and rich, which is relevant. I'm sure he will not have any problems getting into a new relationship. He broke up with me because we don't want the same things in life. He wants to have kids and have a family, but I don't. I think we stayed together for so long, even though we knew we wanted different things. We probably kind of thought we would change or change each other, and that love is all that mattered. I still love him, but I don't know if he still loves me. When we broke up, I asked for a clean break. That means no contact because I needed to get over him. My friends know all of this, and they know how much I still love him. One of my best friends, who's 28, jokingly said that he was now up for grabs a month after we broke up. I ignored her. I thought it was a bad joke. She's very beautiful, and she basically can get whoever she wants. She's always said that she's never been rejected before, and I believe her. I know my ex didn't really like her because she wants a rich guy and because she's had a lot of plastic surgery done. Last time we had dinner, she brought up wanting to date him, and one of my other friends said that we didn't do that to each other. She laughed it off and said, "Well, you can try, but you are not his type." She said that she's never been rejected before, and this is where I might have been the jerk. I told her he didn't like greedy girls with lip injections and plastic surgery. She started crying, telling me now she won't feel bad whenever she takes him because I'm a jerk. My friend sided with her on that one. I waited until I was in my car to start crying. I don't think I'm the jerk. She knows I still love him and I'm not over him. Couldn't she at least wait? I know she's panicking because she kept saying that he won't be single for long. I don't know. Tell me if I should apologize. Update. I talked to a mutual friend today. My former best friend has asked my ex for dinner about 2 weeks ago, the same week we had our fight. She took him to one of my favorite restaurants that she knows we both loved. Anyway, after the dinner, he stopped answering her calls and texts. I don't know what happened there and why he agreed to having dinner with her, and I can't help but cry and feel hurt. I know this is juvenile, and I need to let it go, but I couldn't stop crying anyway. But I need to work on myself and move on. I love him and I want him to be happy. I can't start crying at the mere thought of him moving on. My former best friend is angry with me and has told our mutual friends that I have forbidden him from seeing her, and that's why he didn't text her back or answer her calls. I said that this wasn't true and that I haven't had any contact with him since I moved out. I don't know if our friends believe me or her. I feel like I don't have the energy to care if they do or not. When everything settles down and everyone moves on, the ones that care about me will stay in my life. The rest, well, they're not worth being sad about losing. Not the jerk. She was disrespectful for those comments. Don't apologize because she isn't your friend. OP. I don't think she wants me anymore as a friend. If she ends up with him, she'll probably not want to be friends anymore. And if they don't, she will always think of my comment as the reason. She doesn't sound like a friend since she's been waiting to date him. If anything, she had been staying close to you just to have access to him. You need to make a clean break from her too. And how shallow is she that she thinks that her looks alone will be an equivalent to everything that you meant and still mean to your ex? Also, you need to make sure that you truly want a clean break with your ex. You can't go back and forth calling dibs on him. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know.
Friends don't date friends' exes. Don't at me, bruh.
I keyed someone's car today because they parked poorly. Today, I got the most irrationally mad that I've been in a while. A friend ruined a concert for me last night. This morning, I woke up with a killer headache. I was running late for work and my belt broke when I went to pull on it. A busy intersection on the way to work was choked down to one lane because of construction, so it took like 10 minutes to get through. And when I was waiting for the light, some jerk in a lifted pickup truck with a vanity license plate with something along the lines of "Monster" on it. That's not what it said verbatim, but the same idea. They were proud jerks. Forced its way in front of a car in front of me, making me miss another light cycle. When I finally got to work, the parking lot was full, and I made my way to what appeared to be an open spot somewhere in the middle of it. But when I got there, I found that the car parked in one of the spots next to it was needlessly overlapping the line by about 2 feet. It clearly wasn't a case of the car next to them parking poorly and then pulling away, leaving them to look like jerks. No, they clearly turned into this parking space from the wrong direction and did nothing to straighten their car to fit in the spot. The spot that they were bleeding over into was on the driver's side, so it was clear when they left the vehicle that they were parked poorly and they still left it. Anyway, I had parked on the far corner of the parking lot, around 100 yards further. Even though 100 yards isn't far and I could have written it off, at that point I was blind with anger and was honestly considering going home because my headache was insane and I was worried that I'd come in too hot and get myself in trouble. I chose not to do that though. Walking to the front of the store, I had to pass the vehicle that had been parked poorly, and impulsively I grabbed my keys from my pocket and dragged them as hard as I could across the entire back of the car as I walked by. I instantly realized how messed up that was and started regretting it. I walked straight back to the bathrooms in the store and I hid there for like 10 minutes to stop seeing red and then started my shift as if nothing had happened. The day went on as normal and nothing came of it. I know the cameras don't really cover that part of the parking lot, and I did it in a way that I don't think was obvious, so I don't think it will ever come back to me. But I do feel bad about it. Karen demands I cook dinner for her. I need an outside opinion on this. My wife and I have 2 kids that are both in daycare. My wife will take the morning shift, which includes getting the kids up, getting breakfast, and to the daycare. I handle the night shift, which is getting the kids from daycare, doing dinner, and starting to get them ready for bed. Usually she gets home between 6:30 to 7 and the whole family has like 30 minutes together before the kids' bedtime. We usually spend time reading to them. She has to travel an hour plus, depends on traffic, to work each way. So the kids are getting at daycare at 8 in the morning and I'll pick them up around 4. I work from home and I start around 7 and end around 3:30 every day. The issue is around breakfast. We agreed that I would make dinner each night and she does breakfast. She already makes food for the kids, so it's literally just making an extra one of whatever she's already making. For the past month, she will either not make it at all for me, not tell me that it's done. I have asked her just to give me a general time, but she keeps switching up the schedule. One day they're eating at 7 in the morning and then getting dressed. Other days she's giving them toast before getting into the car. I talked to her multiple times and explained that this is not considerate. We got into an argument and she told me that I'm home, so just make my own food. I explained I may be home, but I'm doing my job. Yesterday, she didn't make anything and I had enough. She came home and I didn't make her anything for dinner. When asked, I told her that she's home so she could make her own food. This started a huge argument and she called me a jerk. Edit. I have the kids more than her. She has them for an hour in the morning and I have them for 2 to 3 hours every night. Also, everyone's saying, don't know the stress of the morning shift. I've literally done it for 2 years. She's the one that wanted the morning shift because of her schedule. For everyone saying, have you asked her what's wrong? Yes, she doesn't give me an answer. I think the problem here is that in the morning there's a deadline. She has to get to work on time, and with an hour commute, there is some variability due to traffic. So her priority in the morning will be speed. At night, it's different because you won't get fired if you don't get the kids to bed on time. There's just less pressure there. Of course, we all want the kids in bed early, but it's not the same level of pressure as needing to keep one's job. The other factor is that you are thinking of the kids as consistent units of work. That's not the case. Kids in the morning can be very variable to manage. They don't really want to go to daycare or school, so they misbehave. So you can't just say, wake up at 7, make breakfast at 7:25, leave the house by 8, because the kids don't agree. One day you give them breakfast at 7:25 and you leave by 8. Another day, you give them breakfast at 7:25 and you're still chasing them around the house, trying to make them sit still and put their shoes on at 8. Again, it's different at night because if they don't put their pajamas on, all that happens is you have a little less time to hang out with your wife. It's also easier to get their pajamas on because they want you to read them a book, whereas they don't want to go to daycare or school. I think a different arrangement has to be made because if she has to get all the kids ready for daycare, cook for them, make it on time to the daycare, and get to work on time? I'm sorry, but make your own breakfast, dude. She has a long commute, and I'm sure a busy day at work. Everyone is busy, I know, but that's part of life with kids. She would have made more time, perhaps, to get you breakfast if you helped wrangle the kids. I don't think it's unreasonable for you to help more with breakfast if you don't leave the house. Your comment to her was childish. Your wife is doing a lot just by the sound of this post. Maybe ask her how you can help instead of becoming an extra kid. Not the jerk. She's grown just like you. If she gets hungry, she can make it herself. Yes, being in a relationship is teamwork, but that does not mean I keep doing for you while I'm left to fend for myself. That's not how it works. My parents wouldn't give me a family ring so I could propose to my girlfriend because my sister isn't married yet. Plus updates. My girlfriend's birthday is on Saturday and I plan on proposing to her. Our anniversary is 6 months from Saturday, April 29th, and I think that would be a great day for a wedding. When my grandma passed, she left all kinds of jewelry to my mom. She always said if I wanted one of her rings to give to a woman in the future, she would let me pick. I know my mom knows she said this. I asked my mom for one of the rings, but my mom said not yet. She and my dad said my sister will be upset if I get engaged while she's still single and not married. It's not a secret that she's desperate to get married, but that's not my problem. My sister turned 29 in March and I turned 31 last month. My parents said she'll be upset if I get married a month after her 30th birthday, so I went out today and bought a ring. It was never about money because I can afford to buy one. I thought it would be special to give my girlfriend a family ring. I'm still proposing on Saturday despite my parents forbidding me to. I'm just upset that they asked me to hold off until my sister is married when she isn't even in a relationship. It ticks me off, but I don't want anything to spoil my girlfriend's birthday. For her 30th birthday, your parents can gift her therapy. I turned 30 back in August, never married. You know what happened? Nothing. The world doesn't end when you're still single at a certain age. That's so weird. It's not like you're 17. A month after she turns 30? Does she own every month? Just wait until you start having kids or something before her. I get being sensitive to her feelings, but this is way over the top. I mean, they could let her pick a ring first and set it aside for the future. It sucks that they're going to be more worried about her feelings than excited for you. Then they'll wonder why you always spend holidays at the in-laws. Update. I proposed on Saturday like I originally planned to. I proposed with the ring I bought after my parents denied me one of my grandmother's rings. I didn't do anything elaborate or public. I proposed over breakfast and she said yes. She called it the best birthday gift she's ever had. She had the same idea as me and had suggested we get married on April 29th, our 3rd anniversary, before I even brought it up. So that's what we're doing. We both agreed we don't want anything huge or expensive, so we're going to keep it small. It's 1:15 p.m. now, about 28 hours since I posted. When we announced the news, my sister was upset, just like I knew she would be, and my parents were mad I didn't listen to them. I'm 31 and don't rely on my parents for money. I told my parents and sister that if they're unhappy, they can skip the wedding. It would suck if I didn't have any family there, but I also don't want them to spoil this. I wasn't going to tell my fiance what went down, but I did once my sister started melting down, so she wouldn't be blindsided by any of it. She assured me she loves the ring and thinks my family is wrong. Her family had the exact opposite reaction as mine, and they're all happy for us. So that's it, all is well. Update 2. I went 18 months without speaking to my family, from a couple of weeks after I proposed until earlier this month. I guess my mom had a health scare, and even though she's fine, it got her and my dad worried enough to get back in touch with me a couple of weeks ago. My wife told me that she would support me in whatever I decided. I told my parents we can't go back to the way things were before, and I will not let them talk to my wife right now after the way they acted. My wife and I don't want kids, but if we did, I would keep my parents away from them too. They were surprised I got married without telling them. I said I'm an adult who doesn't need their permission. We're going to start with occasional emails for now and go from there. My parents said sister is still upset that I'm married and she's not. She has never apologized for the way she carried on or the way she spoke about my wife. I have no plans to resume contact with her, and I told my parents not to bring it up. Your sister is a nut job. Even if you lived in a culture where the older gets married before the younger, you are older than your sister, so that really wouldn't matter. I think your parents have enabled your sister's behavior, which has allowed her to continue acting this way and possibly getting worse. She's miserable and wants everyone else to be miserable too. And your parents should have put their foot down years ago. Maybe now, seeing that you're not going to stop living your life because they ask you, they will change. You getting married has nothing to do with your sister. She being single has nothing to do with you. Just go live your life and be happy. That's the best revenge anyway. My mom is saying that I'm going to ruin my marriage if I don't stop my husband from having an affair. I have a very strong opinion that if my significant other wants to cheat, I won't stop them. If they need to be stopped, they're not worth my love. I deeply believe I deserve someone who 100% willingly wants to be with me and wouldn't fall for temptation. Let's say it falls under my responsibility to try and stop them if I knew they're going to cheat, but what about if I didn't know? I'm married. We've been together for 4 years and married for 6 months. We just moved to a new apartment and little by little we've been renovating it. We're both crafty and we want to create our dream home. We became friends with our neighbors, also a couple. The woman is very beautiful and bubbly and I get along very well with her. She said she envied us renovating since her husband doesn't really like these things and refuses to give her money to start her own projects. She's a stay-at-home mom. I don't know about her situation with her husband, but the closer we got to them, the more I sensed that he's very careful with money. So I get what she means, although I don't think he's financially mistreating her. Both my husband and I work. My husband works a lot from home. I've noticed that my neighbor is getting more and more friendly with my husband, instead of how it started as a friendship with me. She's very flirty, and she seems to have more and more in common with my husband, especially the things I don't really like hiking, but even the smallest things like food or sweets. She has so much in common with him, as she puts it. Since she's a stay-at-home mom, she started making my husband his favorite food, and my husband has said on many occasions how nice it is that she cooks, etc. Now twice I came home, and she's in there with my husband, helping him with the renovations, or has just brought him lunch. My husband doesn't seem bothered at all, so it makes me think nothing is happening between them yet. I was telling this to my mom, and she got so angry at my indifference. She said that I should ban my neighbor from being around my husband and tell him not to talk to her again. I told her that I wanted a husband who doesn't want to cheat. There are 4 billion women out there, and I can't stop him from seeing all of them. He's the only one who can decide if his marriage is worth it. My mom called me deranged, and she's very upset with me. I don't know what to do. I have made my opinion clear to my husband that I didn't appreciate our neighbor hanging around with him, and I even started to cook more at home. Other than that, I don't plan on having a contest with women to win my husband. I always believe that if they can take him, they can have him. It may sound cold. I don't feel that at all. My heart is full of love for him, and I can't even imagine myself cheating on him, even if I was in a room full of handsome men. I just want the same in return. He hasn't done anything yet, but he has texted with her a few times. Nothing flirty, but they have texted. I hate it, but I don't know. My mom said I'm enabling this just to see if he cheats, and then discard him, but all I wish is that he would choose me. Without him knowing that, I'm watching, and without me asking him to choose me. Update. I went home under my lunch break, and sure enough, my cute and bubbly neighbor was eating lunch with my husband in the kitchen. Some girls here suggested that I don't tell my husband next time I left work early. Well, I didn't want to wait for that to happen, so I accidentally, on purpose, left my gym bag at home. Asked my manager if I could have a couple of hours break around lunch, and sure enough, my neighbor was in my kitchen eating lunch with my husband. My husband looked nervous and guilty and said, "Yeah, we're having lunch here." They had the leftovers from yesterday's dinner, and they've ordered a pizza because we didn't have enough leftovers for 2. So she didn't even make him lunch this time. I just said that I was there to bring my gym bag and left. Now I'm sitting in my car shaking. My stomach and heart are aching. He has called 3 times, but I just couldn't answer. He texted me this. "My love, I know you don't like it when she's here, but you have nothing to worry about. I love you." Now I'm trying to calm my nerves before driving back to work. He knows that I don't like it when she's there, and yet the few times I've left work early, she's been there, which means she's probably always been there when he's working from home, which means even if he knows I hate it, he still does it. We've been married for 6 months. I know the first year is always hard, but I don't know. We're in our 30s, and we don't have kids yet. We only own our apartment together. Maybe this wasn't meant to be. Maybe it's better to call it a day now before there's more to lose. My mom will probably call me deranged again if I tell her how I'm feeling, but I'm very, very upset by this. She can keep him. Edit. I just got this text from my husband. I haven't answered his calls or texts. I need to calm down before talking to him. "Baby, you were right about our neighbor. I told her that she shouldn't be coming over anymore because my wife doesn't like it, and she said that she had feelings for me. You were right. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." I didn't answer him because what can I say to this? I need to go back to work now. I can't ruin my marriage and my work on the same day. Edit. Now I'm at my sister's, and I could just cry. I love him, but I can't do this. He's been calling and sending messages and screenshots all afternoon. I just answered him with this. "I love you, but I can't do this. I don't trust you with my heart anymore. I don't think we're compatible because our definition of love, respect, boundaries, and friendship is obviously very different. We probably need to call it a day before we're even more entangled and it gets more complicated. I need space to think. Please respect that I will talk to you when I'm ready to discuss our future." He just called 3 times, then he texted, "Please don't do this. I love you. You're the love of my life. Please don't throw everything away in a moment of anger. Be angry with me, but come home and be angry. Take it out on me. Fight me." If you only knew how much I love you and how nobody else in the world matters to me, come home. I didn't answer because I don't know what to say. I'm going to bed. I just want to cry. I don't want him to call or text. Well, I'm convinced that he already knew the neighbor girl liked him romantically before her big reveal, and he simply enjoyed the attention. You can't trust this guy, and he has only himself to blame. Sorry you're dealing with this, OP. OP. He just sent me a screenshot from her. Apparently, she texted him when she got home that she had feelings for him and wanted him and how he wouldn't regret it. She said she knows he has feelings for her too. He answered her that she was mistaken and that he never thought about her that way. He liked her and her husband as friends and neighbors and that he loved me, blah blah blah. I guess this is damage control he's doing because he has never sent me any screenshots from his conversations with her before. Many people are asking me about her husband. I really don't know what to do about this situation. I don't really know him very well because he's pretty reclusive. Even when we hung out, the four of us, he didn't say much. They have 3 kids. I don't want to cause any pain for them, and I don't know how he would react. My reluctance comes from my gut feeling that maybe somebody could end up getting hurt. I'm so conflicted and scared, to be honest, so I have not been ignoring you who asked about the husband. I'm just scared. Update. I'm back home, and we're separating. It's Sunday morning and I'm back home. My husband is staying with his parents. Yesterday he showed up at my sister's, puppy-eyed and all, with takeout from my favorite restaurant, flowers, chocolate, and ice cream. Why do they always think food solves everything? He started apologizing and saying that he loved me and that he would never hurt me. I asked him to start being honest with me, if he had feelings for her and if they've done anything. He swore nothing happened and that he doesn't have feelings towards her. I told him that he wasn't honest because why would he let her in my home knowing how much it would hurt me and cost him if he had no feelings for her? Why risk your marriage? He couldn't answer that. He just said that he didn't think it was bad since he was secure in his feelings and in our marriage. He then admitted that he liked the attention. So you knew before she admitted it that she liked you? Yes. He gave me his phone and all his texts and told me to look at how he never once flirted or made any advances. I don't know. I was very sad reading and hearing all this. I told him that they disrespected me. Her last text to him is that she loved him and she would make him happier than I ever could. There was also messages with mean things about me to him, and instead of confronting her, he ignored her or laughed at it. When I asked him about it, he apologized and said she was obviously jealous, so he didn't want to engage. I told him that I wanted separation because I don't trust him anymore. He begged me not to. Then he said that I should at least come back to my home and he would live with his parents. He also asked if I could promise him not to start divorce yet and just be separated for a while and go to couples counseling. He said that he messed up very badly and wants me to give him time to make it right again and not just divorce him yet. So I moved back home this morning and he was here. We had breakfast and he left for his parents. I didn't want him to kiss me. He will be coming home when he needs to work in the office and probably if we start therapy. On these days, I can be at my sister's. She was more than happy to help. Now I don't want to see him for a while. I hate my kitchen now. I'm sitting in my kitchen writing this, which is sad because we put so much effort into making it exactly what we wanted. He said he didn't enjoy the attention, just that he suspected and knew she probably liked him. He didn't think it was more than her feeling lonely in her marriage because her husband works all the time. He said he was never interested, so he thought that it was harmless because he knew he wasn't interested. I don't know why he liked the attention. He said she would come over with lunch and say she was bored home alone and that she loved renovations and wanted to see our progress and he didn't want to be rude. She had made fun of my appearance, I'm not blonde, and my style and he laughed at it. Most importantly, I asked him if it was all innocent, would you have told her husband she was spending all day with you? He didn't answer but stood silent because he knew that it was wrong. And I'm sorry, but if many people like attention, then they're not my type of people. If he thinks her opinion is flattering, he's not my type. He's not what I want to grow old with and have not blonde kids with, as she wrote in one of her texts making fun of our kids. You should invest in a front door camera. Definitely tell your husband because she was actively cheating on her husband with yours, whether emotionally or physically, and he should know what she's doing. He blocked her after the text or when he showed you the text. Do you believe he went to his parents? Have you asked them if it's true? Because why would she tell him that she loves him and could make him happier? What was he doing that made her feel to say that? If you're staying, make sure you get a postnuptial agreement to protect yourself. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my stepkid's private school? Context. I, 30 female, have been with my partner, 36 male, for 4 years, and we have a 2-year-old together. I have 5-year-old twins, full-time custody as their dad passed, and he has 2 kids who are 7 and 12, and he has 50-50 custody of them. I was brought up in a pretty wealthy family where me and my siblings attended private school, and this was something that I valued and wanted any future kids of mine to attend also. My twins are now finishing their first year at school at the private school that I attended. I pay for their tuition, and my husband knew they would be going as I made it very clear that I valued this. He also agreed that it is a good investment and would want our kid to attend also, paying half each when the time comes. His kids do not attend a private school, but attend highly ranked public schools. Since the twins started school, his ex has been causing issues and saying it's unfair and showing favoritism that my kids attend a better school than theirs. My husband agreed and they applied for the same school. But when time came to accept the offer, baby mama changed her tune and could no longer afford to pay her half. Note that my husband pays alimony and child support totaling to almost 50% his wage, and we pay for most other miscellaneous expenses. My husband asked if I would pay for her half, and I said no. Ever since this happened, he has been distant and accuses me of not loving his kids enough and treating them differently. Yes, I could afford the other half, but I don't feel that that's my responsibility. I never asked my husband for any financial help towards the upbringing of my kids and wouldn't expect that of him. I felt confident in my decision to refuse, but his constant negativity, the comments from his ex, and judgment from his family for not paying are making me doubt myself. Am I the jerk here? I have offered to pay some of the fees. I offered for all of us to sit down and discuss finances and abilities to contribute. This was refused, and baby mama shut down and began refusing to pay any of the fees. The situation could have been avoided had discussions like these been had prior to application. I was not involved in, only informed of, the application, as they are not my kids, so it was none of my business. But it's now all my business when they want me to pay for the entire thing. Also, lots of comments assuming my contributions to the family are that I'm treating his kids poorly. I pay 80% of all finances. I pay for our holidays and day trips, all of which we arrange during our time with stepkids. I'm also the sole contributor to the college funds currently. I completely take on board comments about how the kids might feel, as ultimately, I think this is the most important thing. Conversations with them have ended and them expressing not wanting to move away from their friends, especially the 12-year-old, or being neutral either way. This is absolutely something baby mama pushed for and led, and had she been open from the start, I'm sure something could have been arranged. Wow, a lot of assumptions were made in your comments. Let's go through them. 1. My husband and I have agreed we will split the cost of tuition equitably. 2. The twins are receiving special treatment for going to a different school. Many blended families have kids who attend different schools. As stated, they go to highly ranked public schools and have friendships built, and they're comfortable and enjoy their schools. They really aren't fussy about wanting to move schools. It's just my husband and his baby mama who want them to move. This isn't a desire expressed by the kids, and had it been, I would have potentially felt different. 3. I don't value or care about my stepkids? Because I'm not paying $35,000 a year for them to move schools? Baby mama is refusing to pay despite it being her who is adamant they go. She makes enough through her job, alimony, and child support to pay for her half. Would you accuse her of not valuing or caring about her kids because she's choosing not to spend that money on the school? 4. I can afford it and won't. Why? The money that could be spent on it is currently being put into savings accounts for all of the kids' college and future funds. Funds which I am the only parent to put money into. But again, I don't care about or value my stepkids. I also pay 80% of all household bills. I pay for our groceries and the majority of family holidays, day trips, etc. All of which are booked and arranged during my husband's custody time so the kids don't miss out. But of course, I treat them so different and I'm an evil stepmom. Husband contributes nothing to my twins and I'm the sole financial provider for them. As my post states, their father passed away and has point blank refused to pay for anything for them in the past as they are not his kids. I feel like I'm being villainized for not wanting to pay for 4 kids' educational expenses when baby mama and my husband both reached this agreement on paying for this without my input. I don't see how it has fallen completely on me now that they don't want to follow through. The comments talking about how poorly I apparently treat my stepkids are crazy. My husband has told me time and time again that my twins are not his, and he shouldn't be expected to love them the same as his kids. His words, not mine.
My twins live with him 24/7 and he barely even interacts with them. I'm not allowed any input in the lives of his kids because I am not their mother, but I am good enough to cover their mother's responsibilities when it suits them. He set this precedent of his kids and my kids. Honestly, the comments calling me a jerk and accusing me of treating the kids differently have actually opened my eyes to how my twins are being treated by their stepdad. Right now, I feel like I'm failing them by putting them in a situation where they don't receive any love from their step-parent. I don't even mean financially, I mean emotionally. And neither my husband nor his ex are poor. They're both educated with good jobs. We all are. My husband wants no responsibility for my kids, but you expect me to assume total responsibility for his? But only when it comes to money, because I'm not allowed to be a part of the other parenting decisions. Why? Update. After reading comments and doing some reflection, I initiated a conversation with him to discuss everything. I once again suggested decreasing child support and alimony and paying together, but I also brought up how unfair it feels that he and his ex have teamed up against me in the situation, and I don't feel that we have been behaving as a partnership. I brought up my grievances regarding feeling used and unappreciated, and how he treats my twins being unacceptable. I voiced my desire for us to have time apart and get into therapy, saying that I needed some space to think as I was unhappy with the effect this was having on the kids. I won't rehash the entire argument, but after talking about how I feel his relationship with his ex was inappropriate and crossed boundaries, I was made aware that he and his ex have hooked up multiple times during our relationship. I don't have much else to say. I feel completely numb. I've asked him to leave. The house is mine before I get comments, and I'm talking to a divorce lawyer. For those who asked, I do have a prenup, and we have only been married for just over a year. He swears that it was a mistake and he regrets it, that he loves me and wants to be with me. According to him, it just happened, and I should be more understanding that they have a history together and he didn't mean for it to happen. I won't be replying to any more comments or updating because there's nothing left to say. I need time and space to heal and to work on being the best mother I can be. I feel like a complete failure. I have a lot to figure out, especially as we have a baby together. He hasn't asked to see his daughter or stepkids since leaving, despite me reaching out to ask if he wants to see our daughter.
Karen uses me for free babysitting, ends up regretting it. I, 23 female, used to be very close with my family. My siblings have kids, and I used to be a big part of their life. I'm always taking good care of them. On my free time, I never do anything for myself. I spend it always with them because I love them. I always go above and beyond for them. Not to mention, I spent lots of money on them. I'm the aunt that never said no. My siblings have more money than me, but all my money seems to go to their kids. Now, this is not my siblings' fault, it's just what I choose to do. I love them like my own, and I never felt like I was being used by my siblings to be a free babysitter because I truly enjoyed it from my heart. I don't have friends of my own. I considered my siblings to be my friends. However, a year ago, I had a terrible injury and I couldn't walk or use my hands for 6 months. I went from being the girl that helped everyone out to being unable to help myself. I couldn't walk to the bathroom, kitchen, anywhere. For the first months of my injury, I lost 30 pounds and I was severely skinny. I lost all that weight due to being unable to cook for myself. There were times I needed help, even using my spoon. I needed to be fed. No one helped me. There were times I literally cut my hair off because I no longer could take care of my long, thick hair. There were times I couldn't take showers. It was the most depressing time of my life. I went from dealing with my injury to dealing with all kinds of problems due to not taking care of myself, not eating properly, etc. Fast forward. After months of suffering and struggling, I was able to slowly heal. I was very mad at my family when I finally healed. I realized they used to call me every day before my injury because they could use me as a babysitter, but during my injury, they acted as if I didn't even exist. There were no phone calls, no checking up on me to see if I needed anything, nothing. I did have high expectations from them because we were very close family. I was there for them through anything, but I didn't receive the same love back. The other day, my sister called me to say her kids miss me and to come babysit them. I said no. That's the first time I've ever said no to her. Why is she calling me now that I'm recovered when she didn't even show up for me during the worst times of my life? She said it's because I never told them I needed help. Now they know exactly what I was going through. They knew I couldn't walk. They knew I couldn't use my hands. They saw me with their own eyes first day of my injury at the hospital, then completely disappeared on me. I feel I'm only good enough when I'm helping them, but when I'm unable to do anything, I'm unwanted. I'm going to be all alone.
but I decided to cut my siblings out of my life permanently. I will no longer be watching their kids for them. I'll let them know this, and I've changed my number. They think it's evil to do this to your family. What do you guys think? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Every relationship must be a two-way street. It sounds like your siblings only want you when they need you for something. I just feel terrible reading your post. You can still be a great aunt when you can and want to, but you don't have to say yes every time to be a great aunt. Am I the jerk for ruining a family dinner? I'm known in the family to be a control freak about preparing food. In fact, in my family, there are 2 dinners in the year that all members come for, 30 people. And before I took over, all dinners were extremely late. There were always problems with seasoning or poor preparation. I'm organized, and for every meal, I have a spreadsheet with everything I need to make a huge-scale dinner. At first, they didn't respect it, but after seeing that my method was useful, everyone joined in and allowed me to be the head of the organization. Since then, dinners are ready on time. Everyone praises and repeats the dish. Not very common. It takes 1 to 2 days to prepare the meal. I don't ask them to help because I know I'm serious with organization, but if the person wants to, I ask them to respect the process. Another fact, my mother was a cook for 1 year and my sister-in-law is studying gastronomy. The situation. Sunday was one of our yearly dinners and I was the head as usual. My sister-in-law, my mother, my aunt, and uncle would help me. This would be my sister-in-law's first family dinner and she offered to help. During the preparation, my mother started to do several things wrong, and every time I said something, she said something like,
Stay calm. A wrong thing will not lead to anything.
The problem is that she did so much wrong, skipping so many necessary steps in the food that most things I had to redo or give a second look. She continued to help even though I said it wasn't necessary. I broke down when I just commented something about steps with my sister-in-law and she corrected me. I was going to comment, but my mother said,
I think you better cool off in the pool and let those with experience sort it out.
I accepted, grabbed a glass of wine, the spreadsheet with me, and spent the whole day in the pool, ignoring when they asked me to come back. So dinner was late, poorly seasoned, undercooked, and no one had a second dish. My mother later said that I ruined dinner and humiliated our family in front of relatives in revenge. I shouldn't take that serious because it was a silly family joke. By the way, I love making these dinners, and yes, my mother and sister-in-law's behavior is common. Am I the jerk? Someone asked for examples of what she did wrong. She put too much salt on one of the meats and it was inedible. There had to be 10 of something for the food and she cut it in half because it was too much. It wasn't. She started to make rice very early and we used the pan first for other food and the rice is last because it's the biggest and heaviest pan. My spreadsheet basically has the amounts and how long each cooking ingredient goes. I point out when they can get the quantities wrong, too much or too little, or when they start making food that is for a long time before or after. Not the jerk. You did exactly what your mother suggested you should in her rude way. Good for you for having a nice day in the pool. The last person who gets to complain is her. Karen demands I rebuild my fence, so I tore it down instead. About 5 or 6 years ago, I built a fence in my backyard. I talked to my neighbors and we decided on a good place to build the fence. We knew an approximate property line based on some survey pins, but we were both too cheap to pay for a surveyor. We shook hands and I built the fence. It was a great deal for my neighbors. I paid for everything, built the fence, and all they had to do was give me a thumbs up when it was done. Then a year later, they sold their house. That meant I got a new neighbor. More specifically, I got Anne. Anne is from the big city. Anne was a realtor. Anne had flipped 8 houses in 12 years. Anne loved this new house and planned on staying for a long time. And Anne had a dog. Razzie was a German Shepherd mix that spent most of the day outside while Anne went to work. Razzie was aggressive. Razzie also, as Anne once told me, loved to chew on furniture. That's why Razzie stayed outside so much. About 6 months after Anne moved in, I saw a surveyor walking around in my neighborhood and he was paying special attention to my backyard. The next day, Anne showed up at my front door with a stack of papers and asked me if I was going to pay her for the 9 inches that my fence was encroaching on her property. I explained my handshake deal with the last neighbors, but she was having no part of it. She wanted the fence moved or she wanted money, no discussions. She had spoken to her lawyer friend and was perfectly happy to take me to court over the fence. She told me,
I don't know how you guys do it out here in the sticks, but where I come from, we follow the rules.
So I got rid of the fence. The next day, I unscrewed the horizontal rails from the brackets, stacked the fence panels up against my garage, and I pulled up the fence posts with my work van. About a week later, Anne shows up at my door again. She wants to know when I'm going to be building a new fence. Turns out, without my portion of the fence, she's not been able to let Razzie out unattended for fear that he will run away, attack something, or that he could get hurt. She also told me that she can't keep him in the house all day while she's at work anymore. Her furniture and carpet are all but ruined. I told her, "Well, Anne, I'm not going to be rebuilding the fence. I don't want any legal trouble, and the best way to stay out of trouble is to not build near your property." The look on her face was priceless. I thought she was going to cry. She probably did when she got back home. She tried to protest, saying that she really needed the fence back and she would even help pay for the new one. She told me how much she loved the style and aesthetic of the old one. It was just the location that she had a problem with. I stood firm. There would be no new fence. She never got a fence. She made half-hearted attempts to put up some bamboo fencing, but Razzie tore through that stuff like wet newspaper. Eventually, I sold my place and moved away. I took the old fence panels with me, and I still look at them every time I let my dog out in the morning. Am I the jerk for telling my ex that she chose our kids over our relationship, and it's not my problem that she's now lonely? My ex and I had our first kid when we were 26. We met at a bar celebrating our 21st birthday. We literally are the exact same age. She changed. Being a mom became her only identity. Our second baby, when we were 28, compounded it. She was a mom and not a wife, and not even herself, not the woman that I met, fell in love with, and married. All she wanted to do was kid stuff. Kid movies, kid TV, kid books, everything. If I wanted to drop the kids off and take her to the farmer's market, she would say no, that the kids love the farmer's market. We had to take them with us. They were 3 and 1 at the time. They did not love the farmer's market. If anything, the older one loved the mini donuts. And she couldn't stand to hear them cry, so she let them sleep in our room all the time. When I put my foot down, she would start crying about how mean I was. When the kids finally outgrew that, she would let them come into our room without knocking. I put a lock on the door and she took it off. We went to counseling. She went to counseling. Nothing ever changed. She said that it would be different when the kids were older, but it never changed. I left when the kids were 9 and 11. I had planned and paid for a trip for our 15th anniversary. We were going to Thailand like we always planned when we were younger. She changed the plans. She canceled with her parents watching the kids. We went as a family to Disney World instead. We had been the year before and the kids loved it so much. I lasted another 6 months and then I left. I pay child support. I pay spousal support. I'm there for the kids all the time. I enjoy my custody time. I go to their extracurriculars on the days that I don't have them. I have rooms for them in my house. I met someone new a year later. We got married a year after that. We had our first 2 years after that. She's an excellent stepmom and the kids are polite and friendly with her. They were grown up and they had a mom, so she's more of a trusted adult. The kids are 16 and 14 now and they're sick of mom's attention. They're spending more and more of their time at my house. I love having them over, and here they understand what privacy and personal space mean. My ex is lonely. She devoted her life to her kids and she expected them to be around her forever, I guess. She has dated other men, but she refuses to prioritize them in any way over the kids. An example, one guy lasted 6 months. He wanted to take her away for the weekend. She couldn't because the younger one had a soccer game. It was my weekend. The guy had checked with me that I would be attending and not just leaving the kid at the field. I was. She refused to go and showed up at the game without him. That was the last I saw him. She's getting angry and bitter that I left her alone to go start a new family with my new wife. I told her that she wanted that life, that I gave her every opportunity to be my partner, and she said that she would rather be a mom. She said that wasn't true. I asked her to prove me wrong, to tell me when she put our relationship above the slightest inconvenience to our kids. She couldn't do it. I reminded her that she passed up a weekend with her boyfriend to go to a soccer game. She said it was important. I said that adult relationships are also important. My wife thinks that I was harsh, but fair. Not the jerk. As the kid of a woman like your ex, I got to see firsthand what her decisions to never ever leave my side to do anything with my dad ever did to their marriage. It was horrible and it really hurt him. It was also incredibly suffocating for me, and I resented the heck out of being the whole beginning and end of her world. It's great that your kids are able to see and appreciate the difference in lifestyles and choosing to spend more time with you. She's going to be in for a world of serious hurt if she doesn't learn and refuses to back off of them once they're ready to leave the nest. Not the jerk. I feel so bad for your kids when they start dating and she gets jealous, and when they go off to college and she follows them, and when they start having families and she oversteps with their kids and spouses. Put your kids in therapy to help them deal with their mother who's obviously not okay. I, 28 male, have chased my fiancé who's 27 female all my life. Now she's cheating. I, male 28, have loved my fiancé, female 27, since the day that I have known what love is. We met when I was 15 and she was 14. She was beautiful, like someone you'll only see once in a mall and remember her even after 10 years. I'm sure everyone has at least once seen such a girl. She was also sweet and fun. She had many issues at her home which affected a lot of her life choices, but you'll never see her in a bad mood. But she was materialistic, and she never denied that. She always wanted good things. I liked her for it because she wasn't pretentious or fake. When I first interacted with her, she made it clear she will only marry a doctor. She also had good reasons and a story for it, and I do acknowledge that. I accepted it. See, I wasn't always very good at my studies, but I wasn't dumb either, so I gave it my everything. We live in India, so if you're a middle-class kid, you have to pass a crazy hard competitive exam to get into a good government-run medical school, because frankly, we didn't have money to get into a private one. I had to try 2 years after graduating high school to finally get into a medical school, all while I was stuck at home trying to study, and she was doing a degree in arts after high school. When I was preparing for the entrance, she was just a friend. Not too friendly, but not too distant either. She made it clear it was nothing more than friendship. I also heard about her dating other people, but I didn't care because in my mind, I always thought of marrying her eventually. I know this sounds creepy, but it is how my mind worked. So when I finally got into medical school, she changed. She got more friendly with me. She broke up with her boyfriend, and then we started dating after a while. Medical school is long, so when I was in school, she had already graduated and was teaching in a secondary school, which was not a very stable or high-paying job. But she stuck with me all through the medical school. After I graduated, I joined a hospital. Pretty good pay. Although I had long shifts, the pay was good. During this period, she told her parents about me. Her parents were pretty happy too, because in India, everyone wants a doctor son-in-law. We have been engaged for a year now. We would have married already, but I'm doing post-graduation in dermatology, which is how I found out about her cheating actually. And it's quite hectic to even attend someone else's marriage, let alone be mine. 2 weeks ago, I saw my fiancé had red spots, mostly on her back. I checked everything and I diagnosed it possibly could be bedbug bites. She panicked, but I just told her that there are no issues because we'll just clean our house and it won't happen again. So we checked both our places. She has rented a house near her school and I have a hostel room that I stay in, although I mostly live over at her place. We didn't find any bedbugs, so I told her I must have diagnosed wrong and I told her we should get her some blood tests. She was very hesitant because she's afraid of needles, but I said it was necessary. So I told her to come to the hospital the day after when she gets free from her school. The next day, she came to the hospital from her school with a male colleague. I had met him earlier, so I was cordial with him. We got her blood sample in, and I started to talk with this colleague of hers. I asked him where he lives, and he told me where. That just rang a huge bell in my head, because you see, in OPD, we see many patients from the same area having insect bites. The bites can be of insects or even bedbugs, but that particular area has a swamp area which gets dried out in the summers, and this happens to the whole area. It's a common regular thing, and everyone in our dermatology department knows it. So I just blurted out, "Do you have any red swellings on your body or anything?" He said, "Yeah, a little." Just after he said that, he went back on his words and said, "No, it's just mosquitoes." But it had already registered in my mind. After he left, I took my fiancé back home, but I had this feeling that really sucked. The next day, I saw her reports, and it turned out that she had no issues. So I just called her, and I told her that I had found no issues. I just took insect bite meds for her and I gave them to her. In 2 to 3 days, she was all right, but I couldn't get this feeling out of my mind. So one night, I checked her phone when she was asleep, and I went through it. I had never done this in my life. I found nothing, but I couldn't get through this nagging feeling. The next day, I took a break from my shift, and I went near her school, and I followed her when she left. She went straight home. When I saw this, I just scolded myself for being such a jerk and being so suspicious. But for the next 3 days, I kept doing the same. On the 3rd day, I saw her leave with that colleague, and I saw them go to his house. This is where my world shattered. I've loved her all my life. I changed my life for her. She wanted to marry a doctor, so I became a doctor. Didn't she say that she would be with someone who was more successful than her? Then what the heck was she doing with this bum? I have nothing against teachers, but he literally earns in 4 months what I earn in 1 day. Why the heck did I work this hard? Why the heck did I love her so much? Since that day, I've said nothing to her because I don't know what to do. I've built my whole life around her. I just keep asking myself, why am I not enough for her? I know I'm not super handsome, but I'm not that bad looking either. She's way out of my league, I know, but I've worked all my life to be enough for her. If this is what she wants, why has she stayed with me all these years? You know, I have had no issues with her ever. She has been the perfect girlfriend. She cares for me. She supports me. I've literally slept on her lap for hours while she sat there stroking my hair. So what is this now? Where did this go wrong that she has to go with someone else? What were the last 8 years? I know this is getting long, but I have nowhere to go to. I don't have many close friends because she was my everything, because my life revolves around her. I can't tell this to my family because I don't want anyone else to find out. What do I do? I know it might be that no one sees this, but what am I supposed to do? Update. People who have given me genuine advice, thank you. I'll try to keep in mind everything you've said. I have also offended people by disrespecting teachers. I'm sorry for that. I was feeling very low and the negativity just came out. I didn't think a man feeling low or having low self-esteem and saying that honestly here will bring so much negative emotions from people. Some people have been outright hostile and mistreating to me. I do understand that people don't like a man being weak. I'll try to strengthen that about me. Yes, I do accept I'm coming off as naive, obsessed, and whatnot. Emotional attachment of 13 years does not go away in a single day. If it does for you, then maybe I'm not as strong as you. But all this negativity has at least numbed me. I do think this will help me to confront her and face up my life. I didn't think I was emotionally strong enough to do that, so I guess it has helped me a little. Update. I talked to her. She accepted that she's cheating. We talked. She didn't object to anything I told her. She has told me that she will respect whatever I decide. It was a messy thing. I'm not in a state of mind to describe anything more. I think this will be my last post here, so I'm making some things clear. I've already missed a lot of hospital duties. We're not allowed to do that. I'm surely going to face the consequences, but I want to take a short break. I know people are going to blast me for it, but I'm not going to dump her right now. This is not how it works here in India. If I do that, even if nobody else knows why, everyone is going to point fingers at her and brand her all sorts of names. Societal pressure is a big thing in India. I don't wish it on anyone, even if they were my enemy. A lot of you have pointed out my flaws, that I'm obsessive, spineless, a stalker, and many more things. I acknowledge my flaws. I'll go to therapy and try to work on it. I accept I shouldn't base my whole life on a single person. Also, I have painted her way too negatively in my previous post. I was low and I shouldn't have done that. I accept it. She is materialistic, I don't deny that, but she has never been a gold digger. She has never demanded anything expensive. Furthermore, whenever I try to buy her something expensive, she shouts at me not to. She is materialistic in the sense that she wants good assets in our life, which we can both use for a long time. I'm sorry if I misled everyone and didn't make it clear. Her wanting to marry a doctor, she has a good reason for it, which I had pointed out in that post. I know it and I accept it. No, I'm not going to share it because it's very personal. She's never been exploitative or manipulative before. She has always been very devoted and has always put me first. That's why this incident was so heartbreaking. I'm not defending her mistakes, because even she didn't do that. She accepted. I'm also looking to accept all the mistakes that I've made. No, she didn't blame me. I'm doing this on my own because I received so much feedback here. And no, neither me nor her have ever been mistreating in our relationship. Everyone has small fights. That's all we ever had too. I'm looking forward to improving myself mentally, emotionally, and physically. I have not been emotionally strong as many of you have pointed out. I hope to work on that. Thank you. She never actually liked you in this way. She just liked your devotion to her and the prospects you offered. This is obvious from her not being interested in you until you went to med school. She was using you to arrange her life in a way she wanted, but her heart wasn't there, so she was free to find others to be interested in. You deserve better, but before you try dating again, please consider therapy to address this whole mess and this obsession with her. She's attracted to your job, bruh, not you. Go back on the dating market. As a young doctor, you will have an abundance of choices. The best revenge is your happiness and success. She has no respect for you now, and that won't change. Have some self-respect for yourself, dude. Get married and you'll be in a long-term suffering. You're a doctor. You're gonna have a great time in the dating market. All the best. Until you get help to fix what caused you to chase after someone so superficial, this will happen again. Learn to be a better judge of character. My ex-wife keeps trying to get back together with me. Doesn't really sound like a big problem, right? Well, I wish I could just plain tell her to buzz off and never bother me again. There is the matter of us having 2 daughters and sharing custody, so I can't excise her from my life on a permanent basis. Not without removing our daughters too. We married fairly early in our lives, back when we were 20, and we had been dating for 3 years before that. Our daughters were born in the very first year of our marriage, and there were some complications, which meant my ex-wife would have difficulty conceiving again. Didn't matter to me at the time, because I was just glad she made it healthy and fine through the whole ordeal, and that we already had 2 beautiful daughters to love and raise up. The marriage lasted 9 years, ended when I divorced her for cheating. I have absolutely no tolerance for it, and I don't believe in forcing myself to suffer needlessly for crap that wasn't my fault to begin with. While this might sound incredulous to some folks, any love I had for my ex-wife was pretty much destroyed when I found out about her cheating and the details behind it. So yeah, this isn't a threat about me moving on from her. I've done that 7 years ago. I don't even hate her. I just don't care about what goes on in her life unless it concerns our daughters. The problem is that it's only me that's moved on from the whole thing. My ex-wife, her family, and even our daughters have kept trying to get us back together, even though I've made it plain for everyone that I have no interest in ever doing that. Me not dating at first for a few years after the divorce might have been giving them false hope, but I sure as heck wasn't going to jump into another relationship so soon after that, not with our daughters to look after. They were my #1 priority, besides my own issues which stemmed from my ex's cheating. Those issues, by the by, got resolved with the help of friends, family, and some counseling. So yeah, that's over and done with. I have no issue in communicating with our daughters, none whatsoever. Anything else? They can understand, it's just fine. There's never been any fighting, no yelling, no nonsense teenage rebellion, thus far. No tantrums thrown and so on. Pretty great, right? Except this whole thing. They know about her cheating on me, and it was their mother in fact who told them about it, some 3 years ago or so. I imagine she's been feeding them some kind of BS since then, and I've asked her countless times to stop with it, that it wasn't helping anyone, that it only prevented them from moving on. But the ex-wife didn't stop, she apparently just got subtler about it. In all the years since we divorced, she hasn't dated or hooked up with anyone else. While I suppose she thinks that's admirable, I don't. To be honest, I find it kind of insulting. When we were married, she cheated on me, but now she's just fine going without hooking up for 7 years? Whatever, not that it matters. While I could ignore the occasional mentions of their mother, of how well she looks, of them showing me photos they took with her, obviously all dolled up for my sake, it's gotten worse lately. Why? Because I have a girlfriend. Clemens is not the first since the divorce, but she is the most serious relationship I've had since my marriage ended. She also happens to be 8 years my junior. Before getting together as a couple, we knew about each other for 4 years through a shared hobby. So basically, it was a gradual transition from being friends to being involved with each other. I can honestly say that I love this woman. It was a surprise to me when I realized that, because while I didn't really want to admit it to myself, I was afraid for a time that what my ex-wife did to me damaged me on some fundamental level and rendered me incapable of ever truly loving someone else like I once did her. Initially, my daughters had very little to say about our relationship, much like they didn't comment anything on the previous 2 I had post-divorce. But then they started coming home, ahead of the schedule we set up in advance, and they'd find me and Clements together. Nothing compromising. Then came the grumbling. Why is she here? Then came, it's not fair to mom what you're doing, as if I was actually doing this solely to spite or hurt their mother. So I set them down and talked, I talked, but they're just not getting it. They simply won't give up on this idea of theirs where I get back with their mother. Clements, thank God, has been understanding and isn't upset by their behavior. She's basically saying to give them time, but I kind of doubt that will work. It hasn't so far, so I have no idea why more time would change anything. Anyway, since I'm really all out of ideas, I figured I might as well ask you folks if any of you have been through this before and how you handled it. Is there even a way, an approach of any sort, that could work on my daughters realizing I will not, under any circumstances, get back with their mother? Update. A lot of things have happened. Among those things, my daughters actually stumbled across my post. I had no idea they even browsed Reddit, let alone this place. When I came home one day from work, I found them crying. They pretty much jumped on me, hugged me, wouldn't let me go, and begged me to forgive them. Sadly, they had read one of my replies and found out the dreadful extent of my ex-wife's affair and how much it had devastated me. It took us a while, but we got through it as a family. There was nothing for me to forgive. They're still young, and they love their mother, who took that love and used it to manipulate them. That's on her, not them. There was some much-needed counseling, but after several months, the woman who was helping us heal and move on has said that nothing more needed to be done, and they should only check in with her once in a while, rather than continue their weekly sessions. We're closer than we were before, but their relationship with our mother has suffered for it, which I think is completely understandable, but I still caution them about lingering too much on what she did, since I had gotten over what she did all those years ago. That was something also resolved in counseling, both their own and the shared ones, so it's all behind us now. I had a brief conversation with my ex-wife about it and made it clear that she was to not talk about this getting back together nonsense anymore with our daughters. I can't tell if it really got through to her, but my daughters have not been pestering me about it since then. Or they simply ignore their mother and don't bring it up at home. Either way, so long as my daughters are fine, I could care less what my ex-wife is doing. Since the situation had improved, things had also become much better between my daughters and my girlfriend, so much that they actually started talking with her, rather than just exchanging greetings and goodbyes, even occasionally asking for tips on something, girl stuff of course, and I can't tell you how much it warmed my heart to see that happening for the first time. I'll admit that also helped me push my thoughts in the direction of proposing to my girlfriend, who had been incredibly supportive and understanding through all of this. 2 months ago, Clemence, together with my daughters, surprised me one day and she proposed to me. I have to say that I felt very odd, but also very happy. Not just the proposal, but that my daughters had actually worked with my girlfriend on surprising me that day with dinner and a night out. To put it simply, I was blown away. It was a small and private ceremony with only our closest friends and family attending. Currently, we're also expecting, and my daughters are looking forward to having a baby brother or a sister to spoil. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my pen name with my family? I, 32 female, wrote a book during lockdown that ultimately got published and it's doing okay. Nothing life-changing monetarily. I won't be quitting my day job, but it's something I'm proud of that I never thought I'd accomplish. I published the book under a pen name. My fiance, his mom, and my best friend have all read the book with my permission, but no one else knows it's my work. My family, parents, and older brother know that I published a book, but I have not shared the title or my pen name with them. They've pushed for the information, but I told them I want to keep it a secret in case I want to write more books under that name. I told them I want to be able to write without thinking, what will mom think when she reads this? They never truly accepted this, and it comes up at every family event. Recently, we were together for dinner and the topic came up again. I wasn't in the best mood and we had all had a couple of drinks, and my brother had been acting like a jerk because his wife wasn't there to rein him in. I admitted that the real reason why I wouldn't let them read my book was because when I first tried keeping a diary when I was 6 or 7, my brother, who was 9 or 10, would search my room for my diary, find it, and read it. He would mock me for what I'd written. If his name was mentioned, he would get a black marker and scribble it out. When I went to my parents in tears, they told me it was my fault for writing about him, and he had a right to read it. They did buy me one of those diaries with a lock for Christmas that year, but then he'd just pick the lock, or I'd catch him prying the book open, and he'd never even get reprimanded. I was treated like a nuisance and a tattletale for bringing it to their attention because he was their precious firstborn prince. He would be emboldened and would continue to torment me. I stopped keeping diaries because it wasn't worth giving him ammunition. They blew up when I revealed this and told me I was being a baby and needed to get over it, and it never even was a big deal. I told them that it basically gave me a complex where I'm overly protective of my writing, and I have a hard time sharing it because I feel like I'm going to be mocked and ridiculed for it. They told me I was being so dramatic and that I always do this. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my pen name with them? Not the jerk. And I would go one step further. I wrote about you, bro, and I don't want you scribbling out your name in my book. Am I the jerk for calling my friend stingy because she asked someone to Venmo her 25 cents? Anytime money is exchanged or she pays for something, Nadine will immediately Venmo request us for the exact amount we owe. If she doesn't immediately, then she does it pretty much soon after, like maybe a day or so. None of my other friends are like this. It's usually, I got lunch, can you get the coffee? Or, I got drinks last night, can you do dinner tonight? And it's always been fine before. Most of my friends and I are in the same income bracket, And Nadine actually makes a little bit more than me, maybe like $2,000 a year or so it's not like she's rich or anything. Well, last week, me, Nadine, and Chloe were at a used bookstore. Chloe and Nadine had gone out and gotten coffee before, and Chloe said she'd pay Nadine back. Nadine wanted a book that we saw there that was about $2.50 or something, so Chloe said she would get the book to pay her back for the coffee. Nadine said,
Okay, and then you can Venmo me the rest.
The rest was 25 cents, not even $1. I said, Are you serious right now? It's 25 cents. Nadine was in fact being serious and said it's 25 cents that she owes her, and she'd like to be paid back. Chloe and I locked eyes for a second, and Nadine saw and said that we're not entitled to her hard-earned money. I said no, of course we're not entitled to her money. But this is 25 cents between friends, and none of my other friends would do this. It's not like we're running up a tab, but it's just how friendship works, and that it makes her seem kind of stingy. I brought up how a while ago, she asked if I wanted to split sandwiches with her because they both sounded good, and I agreed, and she said that I had to pay her $1.50 since her sandwich was like $3 more than mine. Nadine got super defensive and said again that she works hard for her money, and she doesn't just give it away, and if we have a problem with that, too bad. This whole thing has just left a bad taste in my mouth. I've never had a friendship like this. Money has always just passed between friends without issue. And for me personally, while I don't do this and none of my friends really do, even if someone who made less money than me didn't pay me back for some things, I wouldn't chase them down. But am I the jerk, and was I wrong to say something to her about it? I'm so close to not the jerk, but I'm gonna have to say no jerks here. Nadine sounds like a friend I would not want to be around. She sounds like a real pain, but it sounds like she's consistent, and there's probably some strong reasons why she's like this. Someone that stingy and money conscious might have had bad experiences in the past. You can choose to distance yourself from Nadine, I would, or decide to limit the number of times that you engage with her on anything related to money. Despite my distaste for someone that preoccupied with small sums of money, I don't think anyone is in the wrong here. Nadine was owed money, however small the sum, and is entitled to ask to be made whole. Why do you bother sharing costs if settling up afterwards is such drama? Just stop consolidating your bills and this problem goes away. No, Nadine, buy your own stuff and I'll buy mine. No jerks here. She's consistent. She asks every time, so it's a personality thing. She's not even thinking about the moment, just that there is some. I have a friend that pulls out the calculator every time there's a check, so everyone knows what they owe to the penny and the tip is exact. Just realize that's who she is. I don't think you're wrong for talking to her about it. Friends should be able to talk to each other. Just don't call each other names. Personally, I'm more like you. As long as you're close, it usually evens out after so many years. Not the jerk. This is ridiculous. Just don't do anything involving split money with her anymore. When you go out to eat with friends, she gets her own check and everyone else splits. When she asks to split sandwiches, just say no. Don't do anything involving split money with her whatsoever. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Nadine? Please let us know. Bruh, it's a quarter. My wife got promoted again, and now the income from my career doesn't matter. My wife and I have been together for over 25 years. She's been working her way up the corporate ladder almost the entire time, and I've been towing the line as a teacher, with my real job being to take care of our own kids and house so she could focus on her career. And it's paid off big time. For the last several years, she's been a department head in charge of 85 to 120 people from across the world. She Zooms with them all day and checks their work. For this, she makes $310,000 plus bonuses. Meanwhile, over the same time period, my income has gone from $38K to $55K. My bonus each year is usually $100 to $200 in Starbucks gift cards from the parents. On Monday, my wife got called into the big office for a talk with her boss. She's getting promoted. She was 4 promotions away from CEO. Now she's 3 promotions away. Her raise is more than my annual salary. Her bonuses will now be twice per year, not just at Christmas, and both will be larger than my annual salary. Her new position starts next Monday. The paycheck should reflect it mid-June. For years, my income has just been going into our retirement account anyway, but that's already bloated. My continuing to contribute to it is like adding drops of water to a swimming pool. It's inconsequential. I enjoy my job, but it all feels so pointless now, and my domestic responsibilities are also dwindling. We've hired a housekeeper. 2 of my kids are grown. The third one is a teenager and doesn't need much from me anymore besides money. I'm only in my 40s and already feel like I'm done with everything I'm supposed to do in life. I don't want to retire yet, though. Even if the money I make from teaching is inconsequential, at least it gives me a reason to wake up some days. Edit. Since this seems to be blowing up, here's some information you may find interesting. I teach at a small school in an affluent community with a ton of parental support. My job is incredibly easy. Most of my students are above grade level and eager to learn. My largest class is just 22 students. I'm not one of those teachers who hates their job and has to deal with crap from students all day. Also, my wife has anxiety issues and struggles to sleep without me beside her. I literally have to be touching her back for her to fall asleep properly. We haven't been apart for a single night in at least a decade because of this, so I suppose I will always serve that purpose in our relationship. I know you may feel obsolete, but this could be a great opportunity for you if you look at it from a glass half full. You have an opportunity many people dream of. You can continue supporting your wife's success, but you now have the ability to pursue anything you dream of. Continue teaching if you wish. Always wanted to be a principal? Go for it. Want to try your hand in construction? You've got the time. Want to learn a new language? Take classes? You can do anything you want now. Because I'm sure your wife and kids would love to see you thrive. You may not be the breadwinner, but you are the backbone that made your family's success possible. You've done a selfless thing here, and it's hard watching everyone make it and you still feel stuck. But sir, you have exceeded expectations here. Be proud. Now make time for you. You deserve it. Dude, I would do anything to be in your position. Give up teaching, volunteer full-time at a charity for a cause that's close to you, go into politics, figure out what kind of hobbies could make you feel like you're achieving something. Not sitting and gaming every day, but building something, or exercising, etc. Or stay in teaching, where you can be the most refreshed and attentive teacher the kids will see in the day because you're the one that's not getting gray hairs at 20 from counting the pennies in your account. Am I the jerk for telling my wife her family needs to get a hotel next time if they visit because of their kids? My wife, who's 36, and I, 35 male, have been married for 7 years and we have a 5-year-old son. My wife has 4 siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Her brothers live far away and she isn't very close to them. Both her sisters live within 2 hours of us and the 3 of them are very close. Both of her sisters have 2 kids. Her youngest sister, Jen, who's 25, has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Jen, her husband, and their kids came to visit us this past weekend for Memorial Day. We have 3 bedrooms in our house, our master, our son's room, and a smaller guest room. My wife decided on her own that we would let Jen and her family have our bedroom. Apparently, Jen's kids aren't the best sleepers at home, and if they're in an unfamiliar place, it's even worse. So my wife offered Jen our room so all of them can be in one room, and my wife and I would sleep in the guest room. Turns out that by bad sleepers, Jen meant that her kids wake up multiple times a night and then they wake up for good at 5 a.m. every single day. I don't know about anyone else, but the last thing I want to do on a weekend is be woken up by a screaming baby at 5 a.m. 3 days in a row. It wasn't just the baby crying, but the fact that Jen and her husband would also be running around getting whatever the baby needed. The commotion woke up our son, who then woke my wife and I up. Every day at 5 a.m. I spent the entire weekend tired and cranky. To make things worse, Jen and her husband would take naps together whenever one of their kids was napping, which left my wife and I to watch their non-napping kid. I complained to my wife about being tired, and she told me that her sister and brother-in-law need the rest more than we do because this is their life every day, so we should help them get at least a little bit of a break. But by the time Jen and her family left on Monday, all I wanted to do was sleep, which I did immediately after they left. My wife got upset with me for napping because our son was also tired and cranky and was fighting her on everything. She woke me up so that she could take a break. I later told her that next time her sister wants to come visit, they need to get a hotel because their kids' sleeping habits are clearly disruptive to our entire family. She told me that she isn't going to tell her sister to fork out hundreds for a hotel room when we have the space for them in our house. She also said that Jen's kids will become better sleepers as they get older. I told her that every decision she's making prioritizes her sister over me and our son, and she got defensive and told me I'm being a jerk. Maybe I'm far enough removed from the baby stage that I've blocked it out, but I don't remember ever being so disruptive to anyone when we were guests in their house. They're supposed to come visit us again for the 4th of July, and I'm already dreading it. Not the jerk. If they live less than 2 hours away, they don't really need to be staying multiple nights so often. If your wife insists on playing babysitter for her sister, then 4th of July sounds like a great weekend for you and your son to go visit your family or friends. Not the jerk. Your wife shouldn't make the decision to invite them and offer up your bedroom without your agreement, and you need to insist that her dictatorship ends. But if she chooses to do so, she certainly shouldn't expect you to babysit her non-sleeping kid or deal with your cranky kid when she brought these things on herself. I'd insist that they get a hotel room, and that if not, you'll get your own hotel room. Failing that, I'd either find a different place to crash or refuse to leave your room when they're there. Your wife doesn't get to volunteer you or your property without your agreement. And frankly, people who want to make their own decisions don't need to be married, and you don't deserve to be married to someone who ignores your wishes and sacrifices your well-being and the well-being of your kid to benefit her sister. You're the jerk. You're a grown man. You really can't suck it up for one weekend, probably not even a full 48 hours, so your wife can spend some quality time with her and your close family? Seriously? Every commenter saying not the jerk is just as self-centered as you are. Try putting someone else's needs first once in a while. Am I the jerk for tricking my brother into selling me his half of our childhood home, then demolishing it? My mom and dad divorced when I was young. My brother loved the fact that our mom had no rules for him, so he went with her. I abided by the custody agreement because I had no choice in the matter. My mom loves us both, but she dotes on my brother. My dad kept the house. He had to buy my mom out. It was an old house built in 1953. It had old wiring and was really less than suitable for modern life. What it did have, though, was a huge yard that was great growing up. My dad passed during lockdown. He left everything equally between my brother and I. I wanted the house. I told my brother that we should tear it down and put in infill housing, like that neighborhood is zoned for. He just wanted money. I bought out his half of the house at the market value. It was sold as a teardown. He took the money and bought a car and went on a vacation. He still has money left. Then I had the house demolished and built a fourplex. Each unit has 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a small yard, and a garage. I kept one unit for myself and rent each of the other units out for $2,000 a month. My mortgage is $1,800 a month for the entire thing, so basically I live free and bank $4,000 a month. My brother's upset that I didn't give him a unit to live in since it was his home too. I actually offered to sell him one at cost and he said no. I'm lost. I offered him a partnership. I paid a fair price. I offered to sell him a unit. I did everything to try and be fair. He thinks I tricked him because I get free money every month. Our mom said she would be cutting me out of her will and giving everything to him if I don't give him a unit or the income from one. I agreed that was fair and said that I would no longer feel the need to contribute to her upkeep or retirement when the time came. I'm being bombarded by the two of them now, but I took the risks. I took on the debt. This is my money now. Not the jerk. You paid his half of the house. You paid him. He wanted the money. His share of the money was spent buying cars and going on holiday. Your share of the money was spent investing. He's just upset and bitter because he made bad choices and you made better choices, and now he's acting like he's entitled to your good decisions because he's your brother. Also, mom is in the wrong for the heavy and outright blackmail ultimatum that she put on you. Money really does bring out the bad in people. You're the jerk for becoming a landlord. So, leaving the house that didn't provide a home to anyone would have been better than tearing it down and creating 4 living spaces? OP did a good thing. OP would be doing a good thing if he didn't charge $2,000 for each unit. While I'm typically pretty anti-landlord, there's not anything that I can fault OP for. They took a single-family home, tore it down, and in its place put a fourplex. We need higher density housing, so while it's not an apartment complex, it is more efficient use of the land. In this case, the housing exists specifically because OP sought to have it built. Buying a house with the intent of just renting it out feels several times worse than creating more housing and managing it. Situationally, not the jerk, but as a landlord, automatically you're the jerk. You kind of lost my sympathy once you outed yourself as a landlord. I can't stand when people tear down historic houses just to turn them into rentals, so I have to go with you're the jerk. All landlords are jerks. You're the jerk, but only because you're a landlord. Dad stole my identity and opened 3 credit cards in my name. I found my dad used my information to open 3 credit cards over the last year. When I went to get a pre-approval for a mortgage, I was told by the lender they wouldn't be able to give me a home loan because of the defaulted credit cards. They also said I probably wouldn't be able to get a loan from any lender because of it, and they gave me a sheet of paper explaining what I'd need to do in order to fix it. When I tried disputing the cards, one of which is already in collections, The disputes got closed out as the debts were verified. I told my divorced parents about it, and their answers were pretty wildly different. My dad said that these things happen and that I should be more careful in the future with my social security number. Seeing as I've always been careful, that made me pretty mad. My mom said she thinks my dad might have something to do with it since him opening credit cards in her name had a part to play in their divorce. She told me he ran up about $50,000 in credit card debt on secret credit cards. A few days ago, I ended up casually telling my dad I'm going to have to file a police report for the credit cards. He told me I probably shouldn't do that because $15,000 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. When I told him it was keeping me from buying a house, he said I could just wait a few years until they fell off my credit report. He said it would only take another 4.5 years. When I told him I obviously couldn't wait that long, so I have to file the police report, he straight up told me not to do it and to just be more careful in the future. Once I told him I already got the paperwork together from the credit agencies, he told me he had opened the cards to pay for living expenses over the last year. He said his work slowed down a bit, but he'd do what he could to help pay it off. He said it would ruin his life if he went to jail. I'm leaning towards going to the police anyway, but I didn't right in that minute. I have everything in front of me today to go make the report. I guess I just want to make sure turning it over to the police is the right thing to do here, especially if I'm wanting to buy a house this year. Update. The process itself was pretty easy. I went to the police department and the person at the front desk had me wait about 10 minutes before an officer came out. We talked for about 15 minutes and he made copies of all the paperwork I gave him. He told me the case would be assigned to a detective on Tuesday and gave me a pamphlet that had information about how to contact the credit agencies. I was given a report number and was told I could use that now to start disputing the accounts. A detective is going to follow up with me in the next couple of weeks. I asked him what would end up happening to my dad, and the officer said it looked pretty clear-cut to him, but the charging decision is 100% with the state attorney's office. He said if they decide to pursue legal charges, he'll likely get a warrant put out for his arrest. He also said typically if this is his first felony, he's probably going to get some sort of pretrial diversion with court supervision or probation. He probably won't go to jail for years, but if he gets picked up on a warrant, he's going to spend at least a little bit of time behind bars. I've decided I'm okay with that because it's obvious to me he did this purposefully. He's never been arrested before, so hopefully this is a wake-up call for him. At the same time, he completely did this to himself. I just found out that I have a half-sibling. I, 18 female, just found out that I have a half-sibling from my dad, and I'm in shock. My dad and mom have been happily married for over 30 years. I have a sister who is 21, but as far as I knew, she was my one and only sibling. Today, my dad asked if I could come by his office and talk to him about something serious. I didn't take it seriously because my dad will sometimes call me into his office and nag me about school or just chat with me because he misses me. From the moment I stepped into his office, I could tell something was wrong. His eyes were bloodshot as he had just finished crying and he was very quiet. He told me to take a seat and said he had something very serious to tell me. At this point, I thought that he was going to tell me that he had cancer or that someone had passed. Not even close. He proceeded to tell me that he cheated on my mom 10 years ago and he hooked up with another woman, and that he has a 9-year-old daughter now, my half-sister. She lives across the country with her mother. He said that my mom already knows about everything, but that he hasn't told my sister yet. My sister is very emotional, I guess you could say, so he thought that I would handle the news better than her, since I'm very easygoing and I don't get upset with things. At this point, I was kind of in shock because it hadn't fully processed. He told me her name and told me that she would be coming this Sunday with her mother. He explained that they were coming so that he could sign his daughter's passport and that he would love if I could meet her and get to know her. He stressed that it's not the kid's fault at all, which I completely understand, and that he would like me to be a part of her life. He called the girl in front of me just so I could hear her voice, and it absolutely broke my heart when she answered the phone and said, "Hi, Daddy." That was when it definitely became a reality to me. She asked my dad when she would be able to meet her sisters, and it made me tear up a bit. I gave my dad a hug, and I told him that I would need some time to process things, but that I love him, and this doesn't change the love that I have for him. Things still haven't properly processed yet. I feel like it was all sprung onto me so quickly. I'm mad, sad, confused, and disgusted. I don't know what to feel. I knew my parents didn't have a perfect relationship, but this was the last thing that I expected. When told to support her mom, not her dad. OP. My dad just told me about it yesterday while my mom was at work. I haven't seen her yet since he broke the news to me. He also told me that it's a very difficult subject for my mom, which is completely understandable, so I don't know how to approach talking about it with her. I'm not supporting my dad's actions. All I did was give him a hug and tell him I still love him. Despite the news I found out, he's still my dad. Maybe it hasn't quite processed fully, but it's hard for me to accept that my dad has been so loving to me and my sister, and he could do something like this to my mom. I'm upset and devastated for my mother, but my parents made the decision to stay together despite the affair. What do you want me to do? Am I supposed to go off on my dad and call him a dirty cheater? Am I supposed to encourage my mother to leave him and move out of the house? Obviously, what my dad did was wrong, but there's very little I can do now but figure out how to process, move forward, and show my support to my mother in a way that won't rub salt in the wound. Update. The woman he cheated with was from his old job, when my family still lived in a different state. You know what breaks my heart? I used to go to that job with my dad all the time, sit on his lap when he filed paperwork, say hi to everyone there. I probably even met the woman a few times. She knew my dad was married. She knew he had kids. My dad knew that he was married. My dad knew that he had kids. He said that he only has one kid with this woman and that she has another kid, a 6-year-old son. He told me that the boy is under his name legally, but it's not his son by blood. I don't even know if I can believe anything he says anymore. What if he's still seeing this woman? What if that son is his? How can I believe a cheater? My mom is one of the most loving, sweetest people in the world. Her kindness and compassion make people love her almost instantly. I don't understand how or why he would cheat on the woman who loved him unconditionally. Was my mom not enough of a reason for him to stay faithful? Were my sister and I not a good enough reason for him to come home for the night? I just feel so disgusted. I texted him a series of mean messages, basically telling him that I'm disgusted and that he ruined my views of what a father is. I used to look up to him. I was so proud to have him as my dad, but now all I can feel is disgust and resentment. I will never meet his kid. I don't care. I know it's not her fault, and maybe I'm being immature, but that kid is living proof of the betrayal towards my mom. I'm not going to let my mom know that I know yet. Her health isn't the best, and I don't want her to have a heart attack from springing it onto her too suddenly. I can't be around my dad right now. I feel so unbelievably nauseous when I see him. My birthday was next week. I had things planned, but I canceled it. I'm going to be living with my aunt for a while now. My aunt has known about this for years, until I can process it. My teachers are allowing me to do all my assignments online, and I found cover for my job, so I should be set. Don't be pressured into meeting your half-sister. Process your feelings first before doing something you don't want to do. Also, don't believe the words of the cheater. Looks like the affair continued even after the birth of your half-sister, hence the son. Legally, that's his son and is entitled to support and inheritance. Your mother might not have known at all, or maybe she knew about the daughter but not the son. Be there for your mom. If I were you, I'd encourage her to leave your father. OP. I truly believe he's lying to me and everyone else about the son, because then it would prove the affair wasn't a one-time thing like he claims. Thankfully, my mom does know about both. A quick debrief with my aunt, her sister, not my dad's, confirmed that she had known ever since the woman was pregnant. My aunt said that my mom also suspects the son is his. The amount of child support he's paying is apparently really high. My aunt said that my mom found a piece of paperwork where he's paying for both of the kids. That communication confirms that he's continued a relationship with his mistress more than just to co-parent the girl. There's no reason for him to have contact or a relationship with her son, naming him and financially, if that wasn't his kid. If he wasn't still cheating, then he shouldn't have 2 kids with his name getting financial assistance from him. Any financial help he provided outside the daughter would have been taken from your family. You should definitely speak with your mother and help her if she's not gotten help. Karen demands I pay $7,000 for her wedding dress. I had an incident on my wedding day back in 2017 where my former fiance abandoned me and ran away with his pregnant mistress. That image, those details are forever engraved in my mind, and I'll never forget how I felt that day. This was truly a turning point in my life. My family always has been there for me, so I kept them close. My younger sister is currently engaged, and her wedding will be in a few months. She's struggling with money, so I decided to help her and her fiance and pay for the wedding dress. This allowed her to be able to buy her dream wedding gown that cost $7,000. It's a lot for a dress, but she literally cried because she wanted it. This happened a few days before we agreed to go buy the dress. We were eating dinner at my parents' home, and my cousin and aunt were there. My aunt was asking my sister about the wedding, and my sister said that everything was going according to plan, and then casually laughed and said, "Let's just hope he won't run away with a pregnant mistress or something in our wedding day." I was blown away completely. She laughed, and Aunt laughed too, as if this was some sort of a joke. She was basically mocking what happened with me and my wedding. It happened so fast, I got up and started screaming at her, calling her an idiot. But my parents asked me to take it easy, and she said it was a joke, and she didn't think I'd react so intensely. My aunt remained seated, and my cousin asked me to calm down and drink some water. But I grabbed my stuff, and as I was getting ready, I told my sister she was getting $0 for her dream wedding dress, then I walked out. I heard louder commotion as I walked, and my dad and cousin followed me outside, trying to talk, but I asked to be left alone. My dad spoke to me, saying I was too harsh over my sister's joke, and said that I know this is how she is with her dark sense of humor. They said she'd been crying after I decided to back out of helping her and said this would ruin her wedding. They want me to reconsider my decision since it might damage my relationship with my sister, but I refused. Did I overreact? Info. It's my aunt that would usually bring up what happened from time to time and say stuff like,
If what happened didn't happen, you would have had at least 2 kids by now.
or,
Do you know what day it is? It's your wedding anniversary.
it's harsh, but she stopped doing it. Maybe my sister is still being influenced by her. It hurt the same and more coming from my own sister. She was crying over a dress. She should have been crying with remorse for how she hurt you. Not the jerk. All she cares about is her day and her dress and your wallet. Tell her to buzz off, and if anyone in your family gives you crap, tell them the same. Tell them that in 10 years, if she's matured and can sincerely apologize, you might forgive her and you might consider a nice anniversary gift, if the marriage lasts that long. Not the jerk. I wish I had $1 for every time I saw, "You know how she is," on this sub. It's just the same as saying, yeah, we know what they did was wrong, but they don't listen to us, so we're going to try to guilt you into fixing this. You were under no obligation to pay for your sister's extremely expensive dress. It was a wonderful act of kindness. As thanks, your sister threw the most dramatic experience of your life in your face and laughed about it. $7,000 can buy a pretty amazing holiday, OP. You definitely deserve it. Just saying. Am I the jerk for wearing my wedding ring to my sister's wedding against her wishes and hijacking her night? My sister, 29 female, got married last Saturday. The ceremony was beautiful, and I enjoyed myself as much as I could, even though I don't like weddings. The dramatics were not quite as enjoyable. I, 27 male, hadn't seen my family in a few months, and we've only had a handful of phone calls over the course of these months. It's never on purpose that I pull one of these disappearing acts. It's mostly out of habit. I've been fiercely independent for most of my life, and I get easily caught up in whatever I'm doing at the time that makes it hard for me to remember to keep those not in my direct line of sight in the loop. My mother is the same way. It's also nice visiting around times when big events like this are going on, as my mom is prone to hovering whenever I'm home, and this takes some of the spotlight off of me. I had been in Ireland around 8 months prior to flying in last Thursday. I was originally there to spend 2 weeks with my best friend who, thanks to the aforementioned one-track mindness I possess, I had unfortunately grown apart from within recent years. Ours was a friendship that had started when we were 14 and was one of the most important relationships in my life for over a decade, and I wanted to put more effort into it so I didn't lose it. He was spending time overseas as to reconnect with his heritage since his father's passing. I was already traveling, and my stay obviously turned out to be a lot longer than 2 weeks. It also turned into us getting married. Funny how life works out. About 2 weeks before our trip to the States for my sister's wedding, I sent out a mass email to close family, letting them know that me and my husband were married. I wanted to assuage any possibility of us stealing any thunder right from the get-go. My mom replied that she was hurt that she wasn't told sooner or allowed to be there, which I understood. It seemed her mood flipped by the time we met in person, however. Rehearsal dinner was on Friday, and that was where we all met up for the first time. My mom was overjoyed to see me and my partner and spent a large part of the night telling stories about how she had always predicted there was something different about my friendship with him compared to others I was close with in high school. It was a very sweet moment, but at the end of the night, my sister pulled me aside and asked if we could not wear our wedding rings to the ceremony. I was confused, so I asked why. She said I was taking the attention off of her, and she was already bitter that I hijacked her rehearsal dinner. More family might take notice if I wore my ring tomorrow and cause a similar incident. I refused. Like I mentioned before, the ceremony was beautiful, but she didn't speak to me for the rest of the weekend, and we ended up leaving the reception early. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You were married for 3 months, and you chose to announce your marriage just 2 weeks before your sister's wedding. Then her rehearsal dinner became you and your spouse's debut, not only as a couple, but as a married couple. I don't think people's lives should be on hold, but I do think that when it comes to milestone events like a wedding, the guests of honor should have the entire spotlight to themselves, and people shouldn't take away from that. You had to know that handling things this way was going to take attention away from your sister's big day. You're the jerk. Normally, asking someone not to wear their wedding ring would be a crazy request, but I actually get where your sister's coming from. You seem remarkably self-centered and thoughtless of the impact of your actions and behavior on others. How can you not think that running off to Ireland, getting married to someone you haven't seen for 14 years, and then telling everyone 2 weeks beforehand, despite being married for 4 months, wouldn't steal her thunder? Of course, they are all going to be more interested in you because what you did was insane, and so people will be wanting to talk about that. I think you know it would, and that's why you waited. Her request wasn't really the big problem, but your overall behavior is. You're the jerk. You waited until 2 weeks before your sister's wedding to tell your family you secretly got married to your childhood best friend in an international trip whirlwind romance 4 months ago. The least you can do is redirect anyone who starts making her wedding about your new marriage. Plan your own reception. Don't want to fix my IT issue? Well, I think it's time for a new CTO. I just want to state that this IT issue is going to blow some people's minds. The security flaw that this presented was nothing short of incredible, and the fact that we never had a major security breach is astounding. It truly is. The flaw, you may ask? Everyone in the entire company's password was the same password. Yes, folks, you read that right. Every single password to every single employee login was the same password. It was like this before I joined the company and for quite a few years after, until, well, enjoy the story. Now, what about the username? That must have been the trick, right? Oh yeah, that was a trick. The username was the employee email address. I did point out this flaw to my management, and their response was, "That's not our area to be concerned about." So whatever, it paid well, I'll do my job. And then, one day, we had a Windows update, which caused a piece of the software I used to work to break. I submitted a help ticket, and after escalating the issue, I got to the CTO. It wasn't a huge company. The CTO said, "I don't want to spend the time fixing this. Use this workaround." To which I pointed out the workaround slows things down, makes my job harder, and this Windows update has to affect more than just me. I was told to suck it up. Now, at the time, the CEO was the son of the founder and a bit of a jerk. I legit feel at this point in time he was just collecting a paycheck and letting everything run on auto and didn't pay attention. But I was mad at the CTO for brushing me off, so I pinned an email to the CEO. It was a short email, and I simply said, "I discovered a massive security flaw that could potentially expose us to huge liabilities. When would be a good time to discuss this?" The response, "What security flaw?" I decided to demonstrate the flaw. I picked 2 random salespeople, I didn't know them. I got their username and I logged into their systems. And I pulled 2 random customers' personal information, the kind of information that would have easily allowed me to commit identity fraud, pull out credit in their names, etc. All kinds of bad stuff. I emailed the CEO and I explained, anyone who knows the URL to log into our system can log into anyone's account, pull up customers' information, and everyone has the same password. To prove this, I logged into 2 employees' random accounts and pulled 2 different customer profiles and I've attached them. One single disgruntled employee could do us over. 25 minutes later, my phone rings. It's the CEO. He was nice, very interested in how I did this. This guy isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I pointed out the flaw in plain English and the liability that it presents to him. I walked him through the process of hacking my own account, as he called it. I'd hate to call it hacking because it was easy. Now, it dawned on this CEO that this liability was huge. I pointed out again in our conversation a single upset employee could destroy us. The fact that it hadn't happened already was nothing short of a miracle. I get told that they want me to present this to the executive team so they can discuss a solution. Honestly, the solution is obvious. So a day later, we have the conference call. It's the CEO, the CTO, COO, CFO, the company lawyer, the senior VP, etc. And on the call, I demonstrate the flaw and I lay out how I, as a lay person with very little IT background, was able to figure this out. It's incredible that we have this flaw. Everyone is in agreement that this is a huge issue, except the CTO. The CTO gets very upset at me, and he wants me fired for hacking the system. He says that per our employee handbook, what I did is a fireable offense. I point out that I'm not abusing this loophole, and I'm only doing it to expose the flaw because I care about the company, and I think this is something that needs to be brought forward. I point out that a former disgruntled employee could log into an account and steal customers' personal information, and if that were traced back to us, the liability would be huge. I could tell our corporate attorney agreed with me, and he was shocked at what I was demonstrating. The CTO pointed out that former employees' usernames are disabled, to which I pointed out every employee username is their email address. It would be trivial for a former disgruntled employee to use a different employee email address that they remember to log in, and since everyone's password is the same, they don't even have to guess. The CTO points out that we would know who did it because of the IP address. I pointed out that VPNs are indeed a thing. The corporate attorney actually wasn't familiar with what VPNs do, and I explained it. And what shocked me is the whole time, the only person in the meeting who didn't agree this flaw needs to be changed was the CTO. The CEO made it clear that this issue would be fixed by the end of business that day, and there were no ifs and buts about it. The meeting ended. After the meeting, the CTO called me. Privately, he was mad. I just exposed his incompetence because the system was his design. The decision for everyone to have the same password was his decision, and I know why he did it. He did it because he was lazy. And I said to the CTO, "You're a crappy CTO. You shouldn't be in the position you are, and you're lazy. You should have found a better solution for my help ticket." He stops and asks, "So this is about your stupid help ticket?" I go, yes it is." He laughs and says he's going to have me fired. And I laugh and go, "I'm pretty sure someone is getting fired. I'm also super confident that it's not going to be me." Well, sure enough, later that day, we got an email stating that everyone was to change their passwords to something unique. A week later, the CEO announced the old CTO stepped down to spend more time with his family. On the first day of the new CTO tenure, he sent me an email telling me he wanted to personally work on my help ticket and find a solution around the whole Windows update, which I'm pleased to say he did. And I later had conversations with our attorney at a meeting. We legit never had a security breach, which is simply astounding. The attorney admitted that was just plain dumb luck on our part, and if we would have had a security breach, it would have been very bad for us. Your aura is ugly. We would like a new server. Okay, hi friends. Long-time server, but my first post in here. I work at an upscale-ish restaurant. We have 2 floors, and last night I was serving upstairs, and because of the obvious restrictions and whatnot, we only have hosts downstairs. When we are on a wait, the hosts will see when there are open tables upstairs, page the guests and send them up. A server then greets them, sees where the host had pre-planned for them in our system, and we seat them. Now that you know how that works, I'll also just add in here that I am one of the top servers in my restaurant, consistently selling the most every week, and I'm a trainer. So my managers all love and appreciate me and mostly have my back. Okay, so the Karen family is paged that their table is ready. They walk upstairs and stand by the host stand while I finish at my table and make my way over to them. I said, "Hey guys, how's it going?" They just stared at me. Finally, the wife goes, "Do we just seat ourselves?" I, holding a paper cocktail menu and silverware, after walking over to them and feeling like I had just made it clear I was about to seat them, said, "Nope, that's my job. You guys can follow me this way." They follow to the 6 top tables and they all take their seats. I slide the silverware I was holding down to everyone individually instead of just setting 6 silverware on the end of the table for them to hand out. I said our menu is all virtual right now. There is a link on your table. I'll be right back. Come back and ask if they have any questions or if they'd like to get some drinks started. Again, silence. I just pick someone and say, "Okay, can I grab you something to drink, sir?" We don't have what he asks for, but I suggest something similar, and he says okay. The wife asks what beer we have. I said, "We have a lot. What do you like to drink?" She said, "I don't know. That's why I'm asking you what beer you have." I say, "We have 27 beers on draft and 19 that are bottles. So if you tell me what you're usually into, I can guide you through what will work for you." She goes, "Oh God, I'll just have a Bud Light since you can't sell a beer." I, looking stunned, laugh and say okay. Her husband turns his attention to me and says, "Are you having a bad night?" To which I say, "No, sir, are you?" And he said, "No, we're just trying to have a nice family night, and you're rude. You've been rude the whole time, and you threw our silverware at us." I'm stunned, so I just say, "I definitely did not throw it at you guys. I was just trying to slide it down the table to all of you. Sorry if it came off that way. I'm not having a bad night, and I haven't had an attitude." The wife jumps in and says,
It all started up front when you said, "That's my job."
changes the entire tone I said this in, by the way.
And now you've just been rude to all of us this whole experience.
We're like 5 minutes in from them walking up to the stairs at this point, and then she yells so loudly all my other coworkers hear,
Your aura is ugly, and we don't appreciate that. Just send us a new server.
It took everything I had, everything, not to say anything rude back to her. I just said, "I'm happy to grab you a new server, and I'll just grab my manager for you too while I'm at it." My manager goes over, knowing everything from my side already, and they tell him I was rude by seating them and making that comment about how they could not seat themselves, when
There was no host at the stand, so we just assumed it was pick your own table.
and throwing their silverware, and my attitude and aura are just plain ugly. My manager stuck up for me and said I'm actually one of their best, but they still insisted on another server. Imagine being one of the 3 other servers having already heard and seen this go down, and now it's your table. That server made a $6 tip on an $80 ticket, by the way. Forget you guys. My aura is shiny. Edit again because people are sus. The bill for the couple I'm talking about after the 6-top split was $80. So $80 for 2 people, which is honestly pretty average, so maybe I don't work at the most upscale place, but it's not cheap. Definitely not a $6 tip cheap. Speaking of auras, what color is your aura? Please let us know. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Am I the jerk for refusing to participate in my boyfriend's family's bizarre orange tradition? My boyfriend and I have been together a while now, but I hadn't met his family until a week ago when they invited us to stay at their house. I was very excited to meet his parents for the first time, and they were super sweet when I got there. Both of them are lovely people, and we all got along well. They gave us free rein to do whatever, but the one thing they insisted on was that we join them for their tradition of eating oranges as a family on Saturday mornings. They grow their own oranges and have been doing this since my boyfriend was a kid, so he was especially thrilled to share the tradition with me as a rite of passage. So the morning came and his mom brought in some fresh oranges from the garden. We sat at the table and I was getting ready to peel my orange when I saw my boyfriend's mom bite into her orange like it was an apple, with the peel still on. I was so stunned when I saw my boyfriend and his dad do the same thing with their oranges, as if it were totally normal. I guess they noticed my shock because they asked me why I wasn't eating. So I started to peel my orange, but then his mom told me to stop, that I was eating it wrong and had to bite into it with the skin to get the full experience. I politely told her that I like to peel my oranges, and I'm sure they taste just as great either way, but she kept insisting that I had to bite into my orange for tradition. After saying multiple times that I'd rather peel it, and the family, including my boyfriend, pushing back, I put the orange back on the table and said, though I appreciate the gesture, I personally feel uncomfortable eating oranges that way, and I'd rather not participate. Things were tense after that, and we left the next day. When we got home, my boyfriend chewed me out for being rude and embarrassing him and his family. He said I should have just eaten the orange the right way, since his parents were gracious to let me stay with them. I can see his point, and I apologized for causing any hurt. I really do like his family and think they're great people, but stand by my decision to opt out of the orange tradition. He feels like I could have compromised, and I feel that I should be able to eat things how I want. It's a silly squabble in the grand scheme of things, but my boyfriend and I are really at odds about who's in the wrong, and I would love an outside opinion. Edit. Some people have been asking what kind of oranges / whether they're actually oranges. All I can say is that I was told they were oranges, and they looked like typical oranges with thick skin. Edit 2. Lots of frequently asked questions, so I'll just answer them here. No, they don't just bite into it once and make it easier to peel. They don't peel the oranges at all. They eat the whole thing, fruit, skin, and pith, like one would eat an apple. Yes, it is messy. Yes, the skin is thick. The tradition involves eating the entire oranges like that, not just one bite. I do recognize that I could have surrendered a bite to keep the peace, However, this is the first time I've seen my boyfriend eat an orange. He never ate them with me, as he would say that nothing compares to his parents' oranges. He has seen me, our friends, and people in TV shows and movies eat peeled oranges. I assume the same goes for his parents. My boyfriend has never commented before on the common peeling technique. His parents do this every Saturday. I'm not sure how they eat their oranges on other days, but I imagine it's the same. The whole family is expected to participate every Saturday when at the parents' house, and I don't have to do it in my own home. The reason I didn't try one bite is mostly because I was caught so off guard, since all my boyfriend had told me was that we were going to eat oranges. He didn't let me know about the method in advance, so I panicked. That and the insistence that I eat the entire fruit the way they wanted me to turned me off of trying it. I might be open to trying it in the future. I think that covers it. Thanks for the comments. I'll definitely share with my boyfriend. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk? Or is her boyfriend in his family? Please let us know.
I think she's lucky she made it out of there alive, to be honest. This sounds like the beginning of a Stephen King novel.
Force me to take 2 weeks of unpaid time off? Have fun running the place without me. I used to work at this one coffee shop. My first chain coffee shop after working only at local or family-run ones. Simply put, it was heck. Owners would micromanage everything without knowing anything about how the business ran, never listened to their staff, and only cared about the money. Typical out-of-touch owners of a business. I was hired to replace a manager that had walked out on one of their locations, leaving it with only part-time staff. I was told I was being hired on as the acting manager until they either hired someone else or they felt I would be a good fit for the position after my 6-month probation. I won't go into everything that went wrong because there's a lot, but to summarize, it was literally heck. I was expected to cover all no-shows, which had me working 90 to 100 hours a week. I wasn't allowed to fire anyone no matter how many things they did wrong. Someone actually showed up to work drunk, and I still wasn't allowed to fire them. And any changes I wanted to implement were shot down, like replacing old parts in the espresso machine, shortening our hours to save money on labor, bringing in items that customers would always ask for. I was stressed, overworked, and irritated as heck when the owner comes in to talk to me about sales for the store. We weren't making enough to warrant the hours I had scheduled, and he wasn't going to pay me any more overtime. I would only work the hours I'm scheduled, and if someone no-showed, I had to have someone else cover those shifts. I tried to explain to him that I only came in when no one else would cover. It just so happened that the people he allowed to continue to work here had terrible availability. Making the schedule was already hard enough. Getting someone other than myself to come in on their day off was next to impossible. On top of all that, I had to learn the ropes myself. There was no one to train me, so all the managerial knowledge, ordering, scheduling, I learned myself. No one other than me knew how to order coffee, had the numbers for the repair guys, anything other than making coffee and using the till. I was the only one that knew. He wasn't hearing any of it. Owner: all I'm hearing is excuses. This is your store. If you can't handle running it, I'll start looking for someone who will. Me: wasn't that the plan though? It's been 3 months since my probation period ended and you never gave me the manager position, so I assumed you were looking for someone to take over. Owner: I think it's in your best interest to take some time off. Start thinking about your position here and whether you actually want to start moving up. I had mentioned in the interview I was looking forward to working my way up in the business. Me: I can't. There's no one to cover me. You're taking this time off. Is this a paid break? No. Consider this a timeout for you to get yourself sorted. Take the 2 weeks to rest, and we'll see what your position will be like when you get back. Me: Owner, I can't really afford to take that amount of time off. I can't even take 2 days off without having to come in and cover. Owner: Don't worry about the business right now. It'll run without you. Now, to put into perspective, I was basically the manager at that point. I made the schedules, I did the orders, I knew the codes to the safe and the alarm. I wasn't allowed to hire someone to assist me, and no one worked enough time to be able to cover even half of my shifts. I knew this, the staff knew this, customers knew it. I made sure to block all work numbers and spent those 2 weeks looking for another job. I managed to find one after a few days that paid significantly more. I sent my resignation email to payroll and the owner, knowing he never checks it. Deleted my account off the point of sale system. Being a manager means I have access to it from home, and spent the rest of the leave catching up on my well-deserved sleep, having blocked all work numbers. I'm not getting paid, so I'm not working. According to my coworkers, crap started going wrong the next day. One of the openers didn't show, and the next staff member didn't have keys. Owner wasn't answering his phone, so they left a message. Owner didn't show up until one of the regulars called, asking if the place was closed down. He showed up 4 hours after they were supposed to open. Orders weren't done, inventory was missed, 4 no-shows, you name it, it went wrong. Owner tried every way he could to get a hold of me, even using a customer's phone to call me. Too bad I didn't answer any calls that weren't in my contacts already. After 2 weeks, I turned my phone back on and get a call the same day from the owner. We agreed to meet the next day. Owner: so, you've had some time to think. Me: I have. It's really given me perspective on my position here. Owner: we can start you back on your normal hours for now, and we're looking for a manager to take on more of your responsibilities. Me: oh, that's good. I'm actually quitting. He was silent for a few minutes. I think he was waiting to tell him I was kidding. Sucks for you, buddy. I'm serious. Me: I've already emailed payroll and removed my login from the computer. Here are my keys. Good luck. And I left. Owner tried calling me a few times, but stopped once I told him to check his email. I was on okay terms with some of the staff that worked there, and apparently the majority of them had quit after I had left. Owner did find a replacement pretty quickly, but without anyone to train them. Owner didn't know anything about running the business. They were done for from the get-go, and left pretty soon after they were hired. My petty self is always checking reviews from customers and employees, and they have consistently sucked for the past year, and seem to be on a downward trend over the past year. Edit: wow, thank you everyone for the awards. I finally got to premium. Now my avatar gets a sweater. This particular job I had was soul-crushing, and I'm lucky to have a story like this to share with others that have gone through similar things. If someone is dealing with an owner similar to this, I highly recommend brushing up on your knowledge of your local labor laws. There are sadly way too many owners that try to get away with things like this. To clarify a few things, I'm from Canada. Forcing me to take leave was not actually legal of him to do. I was tired and so worn down that I just didn't want to fight anymore. I took it as a gift of all the days off I missed from all the overtime I worked, and that was it. For those wondering about whether or not I'm owed overtime, thankfully I'm not. Another manager task I had was organizing hours and submitting them to payroll. Owners didn't have control over that. The managers, along with me, were in charge of that. There was a rule in place where we had to get approval from the person who made the schedules for overtime, and that was me. So I got paid my overtime. Thank goodness. Even if I did have some money owed, I personally just want to leave it be. It was hard enough getting my last paycheck from them. I didn't want to put any more energy into these guys than I had to. Have you ever had a boss who had ridiculous demands from you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I can't believe how you expect me to listen to you read these stories every day. I need a smoothie.
Am I the jerk for trying to get my girls interested in my hobbies and interests instead of getting into theirs? I have 2 girls, 13 and 10, with my wife of 9 years. My girls are typical girls and don't have a lot of interests in common with me. I tried from a young age to get them interested in things we could share. They just never got interested. I'm talking things like video games, science fiction and fantasy books, Star Wars, Iron Man, Batman, etc. These are all popular things that I see a lot of other parents getting into with their kids. They're more interested in things I just can't relate to. The 13-year-old is into fashion, clothes, makeup, hair, all of that. The younger one really likes animals and JoJo. I've tried to be interested in their things. We watched this really bad, campy TV show called One Day at a Time, but I didn't like it and found the writing bad, and they got mad at me when I would laugh. The older one likes the show Riverdale, which I admit was a little more interesting, but it was all a bunch of gossipy teen stuff. I just hit a wall. I couldn't figure out why I was going through all this effort to spend time with them when they obviously don't care enough to be interested in things I care about either. I tried to sit down with them and watch Mandalorian, and they didn't like it. That really hurt me. Like, really hurt me. I know kids aren't going to be your own reflection staring back at you, but I thought I'd at least be able to share the things I love with them. I thought we'd get to spend time together instead of being one of those fractured families with no interest in each other. I told my wife that I was sick of feeling like an outsider in my own family, and that I'd like if we could maybe do some designated time that we would do things I liked too. I suggested we could all sit down and learn to play this board game I like, Settlers of Catan.
My wife told me that I needed to stop trying to force my stuff down their throat and find a balance somehow. I told her that this is the balance. I can't pretend to be interested in things like gossipy TV dramas, soap operas, etc. when that just isn't me. I'm not a teenage girl. I can't pretend to be one. Am I the jerk? I feel lonely in my own family.
Karen demands I wash her dog.
Yesterday evening, I was leaving the dog park, and since my younger pup was in need of some chewing toys, I decided to come to a local pet store that admits pets. Due to the time, they weren't supposed to have many customers, but I still called in advance to ask if it was okay to bring my 2 dogs with me, and they told me yes. When I came in, there were only like 2 people, no dogs and no employees nearby, so I took my time looking around. Now, the employees have a casual dress code with jeans, an apron, and wear a face mask and a face shield. I was wearing the same minus the apron. Also, to paint the picture, my senior dog is medium-sized and thin, but very protective of me, and my pup is a bit bigger and stronger. I was looking at the treats/chews aisle when a woman about my age approached me and asked about the birds. When she realized I wasn't an employee, she apologized, but I told her I could help her. I am a biologist, and my mother works with birds, so I answered some basic questions about food and housing and showed her a couple of websites on my phone where she could find more info. She thanked me and went on her way. As I was going back to the dog toys, an older woman/Karen carrying a small dog came up to me and started asking to have her dog groomed. I'll try to translate the conversation as best I can since it was not in English. We've got me, we've got Karen, and we've got the supervisor. Karen:
Hey, I need to leave my dog to be groomed. How much will it be and when can I pick her up?
Me: sorry ma'am, I don't know. You can ask an employee if you want, but I think they're closed for the day.
Karen: You think?
Me: Yes, an employee would be able to answer your question. Karen, condescending tone:
That's what I'm doing, hun. Now, can you do your job and help a customer?
At this point, her dog had started growling at mine. My pup was getting a bit excited and wagging his tail, but my senior dog was staring at it, which usually means he is annoyed and running low on patience. Me: I really don't know. I'm not an employee.
Then why were you helping that woman?
Me: Because I happen to know a bit about what she was looking for.
Oh, and you don't want to help me?
At this point, she was raising her voice at me, and her dog was full-on barking. I was struggling to keep my pup still, and my senior dog had started baring his teeth, so I tried walking away, but she kept getting closer. Me: I told you I'm not an employee, so I can't help with what you need. Look, you're upsetting my dogs, so please stay back.
Karen: For goodness sake, just take my dog and stop wasting my time.
At this point, she shoved her dog towards me. I rose my hands in front of me in reflex, and the little thing bit my finger hard, and I yelped loudly. This caused my senior dog to jump at her and start barking at the dog, making her lose her balance and fall down. Karen screaming:
Control those beasts. I'm going to report you. You're doing a poop job. Blah, blah, blah.
Supervisor coming from behind me along with another employee: Hey, what's going on here? Karen:
Your employee threw those dogs at me when I tried to ask about grooming. You shouldn't be allowed around pets.
Me: I told you to leave us alone. I'm not an employee. Supervisor helping the woman up while the other employee is trying to pick up the tiny dog from heck. She's right, she doesn't work for us, and the groomer is gone for the day.
Unbelievable. I want your supervisor right now.
Supervisor: No need. I am the supervisor, and I saw the last part. You were harassing a customer, so please get off the premises. The grooming service is closed for the day.
Unbelievable.
She snatched her dog from the employee's hands and stormed off, but she kept turning around to scream insults at us. In the end, I was too shaken and decided not to buy anything. The supervisor and the employee still asked to pet my dogs, who had more or less calmed down by then, asked their names and how old they were, and offered each of them a treat for free. They explained that they were fixing an issue on the other side of the store, but came running when they heard the Karen raising her voice. By the time I left and got to my car, the Karen was gone and I could leave in peace. If you're wondering, the pups got extra treats and a lot of pets and kisses. Speaking of dogs, have you ever had a dog? And if so, what kind? Please let us know.
Poodles for the win.
How my grandpa became the owner of a gas station. My family immigrated to America in the 1880s and settled in Nebraska.
We were farmers for the first 80 years or so, but back in the 1960s, my great-grandma decided she was going to sell the entire farm before she passed and simply give her sons 1/3 of the money for inheritance when she passed. She had 3 sons. In 1969, my great-grandma passed, and her 3 sons inherited the money she had earned from selling the farm. My grandpa decided he would basically let that money sit until after he retired from the military. In 1971, he deployed to Vietnam for his second and final deployment. At the end of his deployment, he returned to Nebraska and retired after 22 years of service. Now, he had an old Chevy truck at the time and was in the process of building a concrete business with the money he had gotten from his inheritance. Well, during this time, his truck engine blew up. My grandpa was busy at the time, and he didn't want to fool with the truck because he was busy. So he bought himself the engine he wanted to replace it with, which was an upgrade, and he went down to the only garage in town and asked them if they'd be willing to put the engine in the truck. They agreed on a price and told him to come back in a week or so. A week later, my grandpa comes back and picks up the truck. He admits he felt kind of like a fool for not double-checking the work, but assumed, since this was the son of his friend, that the son would do right by him. This was a small town. Well, my grandpa opens up the concrete business, and he's busy, and it comes time for his first oil change. This is about 4 months after he got the truck back. He's doing the oil change, and he notices that the engine he bought isn't the engine in his truck. It's a smaller engine. This obviously upsets him to high heaven, as my grandma liked to say. So he storms on down to the garage and talks to Shop. Earl was the owner. Earl comes out and denies any wrongdoing, says he did as he was told, and it shouldn't have taken him 4 months to bring the issue up. My grandpa tells Earl he needs to do what's right. Earl refuses. It's important to note, this is a small town. Written contracts and so forth really isn't a thing. Your worth is your word. My grandpa tells Earl he's going to get him for this. Earl laughs and tells him to leave his shop. My grandpa goes down to the county and requests the record for who owns that gas station. Turns out it's an old family friend named Harold. My grandpa stops by Harold's house and starts inquiring about the business deal Harold has with Earl. Harold says, well, Earl rents the gas station/garage from him. My grandpa asks Harold how is everything going, and Harold confides that Earl hasn't paid his rent in 2 months. My grandpa asks, do you have a written lease with Earl? To which Harold goes, no, I sure don't. My grandpa then asks, what if I bought the gas station/garage from you? Harold isn't completely on board with the idea, but my grandpa makes a strong point. Earl isn't paying his rent. Harold doesn't seem like he has much interest in being a landlord anymore, and my grandpa has the cash to buy the place outright. Harold, sensing something is up, asks my grandpa, did Earl do something to you? You seem awfully interested in this garage. Ain't you busy with that concrete business of yours? And my grandpa fills Harold in on the story. My grandpa also mentions that he has a son, my father, who needs something to do, and he'd be happy to buy the whole building from Harold for a fair price, and what happens after that is his business. Also, it's important to note, when Harold decided to rent this business to Earl, in that deal went all the equipment and tools that Harold had acquired over the years, so those belonged to the building. Harold and my grandpa came to a number that they both agreed on. A few days later, my grandpa paid Harold in cash, in full for the business. The paperwork is done, and my grandpa is now the proud owner of a gas station and mechanic shop. Now, my grandpa senses that Earl ain't going to be pleased when my grandpa fires Earl, so for extra good measure, my grandpa calls up the local sheriff, who is a high school friend, and asks the sheriff to come with him to break the news to Earl. So my grandpa and the sheriff go down to Earl's now former business, and they walk in, and before my grandpa can even say hello, Earl says, now I told you, I didn't cheat you. My grandpa smiles and says, I'm not here about my truck, I'm here to fire you. Earl, with a look of confusion on his face, asks, you can't fire me, I own this business. My grandpa shows him the title and says, I'm now the owner of this building, to which Earl fires back, but I got a deal with Harold. And the sheriff speaks up, you do? Do you have a lease? Well, no, Earl says, to which the sheriff smiles and says, in that case, you're going to need to take your stuff and leave. Earl is fuming. He grabs his toolbox and storms out. My grandpa ended up hiring the mechanic that would occasionally work on his truck at his concrete business. He had my aunt and grandma run the gas station full-time, and my dad would work there after school. We owned that garage for 25 years before my grandpa sold it to someone else. Have you ever had a shop try to do you wrong? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
And you wonder why I call corporate.
Am I the jerk for telling my ex-husband my child support obligation is over? I'm 39, female. My ex-husband and I have been divorced for the last 13 years. I gave up custody of my daughter during the divorce and have been sending over child support checks until May of 2020, when my daughter turned 18. My daughter is a quadriplegic and has been since she was 5. Her dad lost his job around 14 years ago, so for the first 2 years after our divorce, the child support me and my then new husband sent over was what helped them survive. My checks have never been late, but I now have 2 kids with my current husband, aged 12 and 8. I've been a stay-at-home mom for the entirety of our marriage, so it's been my husband being kind enough to pay for a kid that's not his. When my daughter turned 18, I talked to her and basically wished her and my ex-husband luck in whatever they chose to do in the future. I get a call from my ex-husband saying that my daughter wanted to start college in fall of 2021. The college they picked was the best in the state for students with disabilities, but that my ex-husband couldn't pay the tuition alone. He said that our daughter couldn't do any of the student jobs available and said if I wanted to do right by my first kid, I should help pay the bill. I was talking to my ex on speakerphone and my current husband interjected and said that was all his money and he has done everything to help me meet my legal obligation, but that's done now. I told my husband that our daughter is now a legal adult and I had covered her expenses when she needed a lot of medical attention at ages 6 and 7, and that we were only a bit older than her when we were already parents. I told him that I had already done right by our child and that college isn't a necessity. I wished them the best of luck in looking into possible other scholarships and grants and said I had 2 other kids that needed me. Am I the jerk for fulfilling all my legal obligations and telling my ex that his 18-year-old is an adult now? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
Another story that I just can't wait to see what our audience thinks.
So, you're the manager of my spare time now? I was employed at a small market radio station for many years a while back. I loved the actual work, but the people there were just terrible, particularly the manager in this story. She spent 7 years pretending we were friends, working up from sales to sales manager and eventually station manager. And then one day she decided to make my job a completely miserable experience, holding station meetings without me, creating recording sessions without putting them on my schedule, ignoring my reports of tech issues so things never got fixed. It was ridiculous how little managing she actually did. Basically, there had been a buildup of her crap leading up to this story, and this was the first real time I put my foot down. Since we were a small staff, and I was the employee with the most years, I had a lot of responsibilities. The easiest way of describing my job was I did everything except sell ads. Every day had the same main responsibilities, but minor changes kept each day different. Punch in at 8 a.m. and co-host the final hour of the morning show. Answer phones and the door all day. Record ads and clients, edit shows, do the afternoon broadcast, 1 to 5 p.m., pre-record the evening news block to air after I leave for the day. One day, the morning show host decided we needed to talk about America's Got Talent, but by the time he has this great idea, auditions were already 3 shows in. I had never watched the show before because I absolutely hated reality TV, but I thought, what could it hurt? And I went home that night to watch the week 4 episode. While it was entertaining, it was also an overly padded waste of time. But I did my homework and did the show the next morning and hyped it up like it was the greatest thing ever. Next week, I forgot to watch. I go into work and the morning show host asks what I thought, and I panic for a second before telling him I didn't see it. Since I had about 20 minutes of morning news before I was live, I ran to my office and checked YouTube for a highlight reel. And there it was. An hour-long TV show whittled down to a 15-minute video. Perfect. When it was done, I moved to the broadcast studio and did a great recap of last night's episode. Even the host, who watched the entire show, thought I did a great job keeping up with him. 6th episode came around, and this time I remembered it was on. But since I knew NBC was going to post the highlights for me tomorrow, I opted to spend my free time on something that I actually wanted to do. Next morning, I go straight to the highlight reel and get caught up on every act that was important enough to talk about. Again, the show host thought I did a great job, but my manager didn't think it was good enough. She called me into her office to ask why I was purposely ignoring requests to watch the show. I asked her what difference does it make whether I watch the hour-long broadcast
full of commercials and long-winded filler to stretch the runtime, versus watching the highlight reel that has every high point and does the same job in 15 minutes. She said it makes a difference and wouldn't elaborate. She was always pulling that "I'm right and I don't have to tell you why" crap. She then pointed out that next week was when judges began cutting acts and there was going to be episodes every Tuesday and Wednesday for the rest of the broadcast, and watching it was mandatory. "How long are these episodes?" I asked her.
They're an hour each.
And that's when I decided to put an end to this BS once and for all. So that's 2 hours of show prep each week? Do I mark that down on my timesheet as overtime? Or am I expected to cut out at 3 p.m. on Fridays so I don't go over my scheduled 40 hours? My manager's eyes bugged out like she never once expected me to demand payment for dictating how I spend my time outside of the office. I just stood there waiting to see if I was going to be making extra money or getting an early start to the weekend. Suddenly, the 15-minute highlight reel during regular paid office hours was good enough. Funny how that works, eh? No overtime and report actual time worked. Regional manager steps on my toes. Many years ago, I was managing a company that was part of a national chain. We served customers all over the world with internet, phone, and we also had a high volume of walk-in customers on site. My regional manager made it clear to me that I was not to authorize any overtime. If a customer walked in or called in a few minutes before closing and would require an employee to work 30 to 60 minutes to service the customer and make a sale, I would allow them to come in late the next day by the 30 or 60 minutes they had worked over the night before. I balanced the time every week with no overtime and reported regular hours on payroll. We were working a bi-monthly pay period. One day when I was off, the regional manager paid a surprise visit to the site I was managing. He had a meeting with all of the employees in my absence and read them the riot act and demanded that all of them must report promptly in the morning at the start of their shift and leave in the same manner at the end of the shift, and they must report actual times on the handwritten time cards to the minute. My team reports this to me the following day and we comply. We rack up a bunch of overtime over the next 2 weeks, with those that got caught up servicing customers at the end of the day after hours. After submitting the timesheets, the regional manager calls me and goes off on me about the overtime. It went like this. Manager: "What the heck is going on over there? I told you no overtime. This is unacceptable. I didn't authorize this." Me: "Did you visit my facility and have a meeting with my staff in my absence and demand that actual times must be reported and they have to be punctual and leave promptly?"
Yes, I did.
Me: "I've been managing this by allowing people to work late and come in late to eliminate overtime and make sales. We close at 5. We expect a sales rep to answer the phone at 4:59, work with the customer and make a sale. If a customer walks in at 4:59, we expect a sales rep to work with the customer and make a sale. This could take 15 minutes to an hour. I appreciate my staff doing this to service the customer, and we are now complying with your new rule to report actual times. You really shook up my staff on your last visit, and I cannot manage this anymore." Manager:
Forget we had this conversation and go back to what you were doing.
"Am I the jerk for not punishing my son for opening limited edition Doctor Who sets?" My son, B, 14, is autistic. His special interest is Doctor Who. He's been obsessed with the show since he was about 3. Naturally, his room is Doctor Who themed, and he has several Doctor Who toys. My husband and I, B's stepdad, happily indulge in his interest. B doesn't really understand the whole concept of figurines and plays with them as one would with toys. We make sure to buy him good quality figures that won't cost us a fortune because he'll probably destroy the packaging and lose their props. B's father recently got back into his life and is also a fan of Doctor Who. As such, he was pretty excited to buy him things for Christmas. We explained that he shouldn't buy anything that can't be used as a toy, so no collector's items or anything that would have to stay in packaging. He said he understood. Come Christmas, he bought our son 2 limited edition collector's figure sets, which definitely cost a bit. My husband and I were a little apprehensive, but we didn't say anything. It was explained that they weren't toys and had to stay in their packaging. Our son didn't really pay attention to them, but occasionally I caught him staring and shaking the boxes about. A week ago, he asked me if he could get them out just once, promising he'd put them straight back. I explained that they were expensive and shouldn't really be played with, but they were his, so he can do what he wants with them. He got them out, and true to his word, he kept the packaging nice and puts them back whenever he'd finished playing. Obviously, my ex wound up finding out
and blew up at me over it, saying I shouldn't have let him open them because they weren't toys. I explained they were his and he could do what he liked with them. He's insisting I punish our son for not following the rules, saying if he had known B wouldn't have looked after them, then he would have kept them for himself, which is rich considering we told him B would probably take them out of their packaging. My husband thinks we're in the right, but family members think we should do something because our son did get clear instructions not to open the boxes. Am I the jerk? Do you want a job? This happened several years ago while I was shopping where they wear blue shirts and have a nerd platoon. I'm in the computer accessories section looking for a DVD-RW to replace a faulty one and some extra RAM for a kick. I am, however, not dressed in any way like the indentured servant scurrying around the floor. Black leather bomber jacket, black t-shirt, black jeans, black steel-toed boots, and look like I just got off a motorcycle, which I had. In fact, a rather imposing figure if met in a dark alley. I shop here often and know several employees and a few managers. While reading the back of some box, I noticed a little old lady, 90-ish years old, and maybe 80 pounds, 35 kilograms soaking wet, glancing behind blank CDs and DVDs. Back and forth through this section, she would pick up a container, carefully look at it, put it back, and grab the next for careful inspection. I didn't really pay much attention until I hear her sigh. Not the typical Karen, get your keister over here and help me, but more the final resignation of utter defeat. Okay, that got my attention. I ask if I can help. She quickly gives me the once-over and paused for a moment. For a second, I thought she was going to call security, then nearly pleaded with me to find what her granddaughter wanted for her birthday. A PC with a DVD-R. I briefly explained that what she's been looking at are blank discs and not PCs. A PC is a full computer. Her blank stare spoke volumes. She told me she had waved down a few blue shirts, but no one responded. I said, that's no problem. What does she want? Let's go see if we can find something for her together. I hold out my arm for her to take, and we round the corner to the laptops and PCs. I get an idea of what her grandkid wants. A laptop is what I gathered, and poke through the models on display. We pick one out, and I pull the little slip she'll need when she goes to the nerd desk to pick it up. I walk her to the counter. She thanks me for being so polite and kind, to which I blame my mother for the upbringing. I go back to shopping for the drive and RAM I need, find them, and head over to check out. I pay and walk to the door. The burly security guy stops me, like everyone else, and looks in my bag and checks my receipt. Just as we're getting done, I get a tap on the shoulder and it's a store manager I'm familiar with and the little old lady. He recognizes me and asks if little old lady's story is correct. I ask for clarification, not wanting to jump headfirst into a potential shark tank. He relays how I helped her when no one else would. I guiltily nod my head. He tells me this is his mother and the PC is for his daughter. She wanted to surprise both son and granddaughter, so she didn't seek out her son for help, apparently not considering an employee discount either. Well, anyways, he just wanted to thank me for taking the time with his mother. No problem, I said, again blaming my mother for teaching manners. He then asks if I would like a job there. While growing up, we've all hoped some corporate bigwig would single us out and offer us some big-shot executive position that doesn't need a lot of input, yet pays a boatload. This was not what he was offering, so I politely declined. Get to help someone spoiling their grandkid? Count me in. I know, not the juicy rant about entitled Karen nor typical tech tale. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Entitled mom tries to steal my wedding money. We've got me, my fiance, entitled mom, bank employee, and bank manager. Me and my fiance are getting married in December. We both set up a joint savings account, and with a great deal of working our butts off, we were able to save up about $10,000 for the wedding of our dreams and our honeymoon, and anything else we'd need down the line. Now, a while back, I agreed to have a cup of coffee with my horrible entitled mom, the one who was a total jerk and walked out on us 11 years ago. The only reason I agreed to meet with her was because I promised my little sister I'd try and be nice and hear her out. Anyway, we spoke. Well, she spoke, and I just glared at her, and then we left. She then begged me for a lift back to the station, and I begrudgingly agreed. I dropped her off and hoped I'd never see her again. Until today. We were sitting at home watching a movie when my phone rings. It's the bank. Bank employee. Hello, this is bank employee calling from Santander. Am I speaking to OP? Me. Yes, hi. Can I help you? Bank employee. I need to discuss account-sensitive information. Can you just confirm some security details for me? I answer his questions and then ask what is going on. Employee: Your fiancée is sitting in our waiting area. She's requesting that we transfer $7,000 from your joint account into an account in a different name. Obviously, this raises some flags, and as per your security settings, any transfer over $1,000 requires joint authorization. We did. Hang on. Sorry, I've just been told she's left the branch, although we still have the card. Me: Let me stop you right there. We're coming in now. Whoever just tried to transfer money from my account wasn't my fiancée, as she's sitting right next to me. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Employee: Okay, we do have to notify our fraud office of this incident. I'll see you soon. Me and fiancé get to the branch and ask to speak with employee, and he walks over. Employee: Hello, we just spoke on the phone, didn't we? Me: Yes, hopefully you can tell me how someone got access to our account. Certainly. First things first, if I may see some ID, I can give you your card back. Me: Sure thing. We both hand over our driver's licenses. He looks at them and then hands it back, along with the card. Fiancé: Can you describe the woman who tried to gain access? Me: Actually, you could do one better. I showed my warrant card and badge to bank employee. Me: Police, would you mind getting your manager? I'd love to have a look at the CCTV from the time of the access. Employee: This is quite irregular, but I'll go get my manager. Ultimately, it's her choice should she show you the footage. Employee picks up a phone off the desk and places a call. A few minutes later, a smartly dressed woman in a burgundy suit walks out. She's holding a laptop. As she walks up, she extends her hand and I shake it. Manager: Officer, if I may just check your ID, I can show you a CCTV still image, but I'm afraid actual video footage would need to be requested via head office. Fiancé: That's all right, isn't it? We just want to know who it is. Me: Yeah, we do. I once again show my ID. The woman opens her laptop and turns the screen around, and there in glorious 1080p is a photo of my mother, leaning against the counter. Fiancé: Wait, isn't that... Me: Yeah, it is. I turn to bank manager and bank employee. Me: Thank you very much. I know who the woman in this picture is. It's my mother. She's unwell. Please proceed with contacting the fraud office, and I'll deal with her. Thank you so much for your time. We leave the branch, and I take my phone out and dial my mom's number. She answers almost immediately. Entitled Mom: Hello, son. What a lovely surprise. Me: Cut the crap. I know you tried to get into my and fiancé's bank account, so before I block your number and see to it that you get arrested for theft and bank fraud, I just wanted to say that I knew you'd never change. You're still the same vile, horrible person you've always been. Entitled Mom: Listen here, you ungrateful man. I deserve that money. It's a son's duty to help their mother out. You owe me. Plus, it's not like you need it. Now, me on the other hand, I happen to need... Click. I end the call and push the block number button. As it turns out, my mom took the card from the glove compartment of my car when I was dropping her off at the station. And yes, don't worry, both me and fiancé will be filing charges against her. Also, another thing that bothered us. What the heck did she need £7,000 for? Do this next. Tap the video that just popped up on your screen. You won't believe what happens in that one.